Palovo on the drum. Yeah.
Thank you. The meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Budget of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr,
Present.
Director Garcia,
Present.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Present.
Director Herndon. Oh, I did see her. Director Leonard,
Present.
Director Peterson,
Present.
Director Seamson,
Present.
Director Taylor,
Counted for.
and Chair O'Halloran.
Here.
We are checking on Director Herndon. We have 8 members present.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. While we check on Director Herndon's status, I'm just going to go ahead and say that since the Pledge of Allegiance was recited at the previous meeting, we will move on to a brief announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes. Para las personas que desean escuchar la Junta Escolar en español, por favor de llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de clave 608-130-5362. Una vez más, el teléfono es 312-626-6799 y número de clave 608-130-5362. Gracias.
And thank you. I see it. Director Herndon is attempting to log on. Are we able to check in with Director Herndon?
Present.
Okay. Thank you.
So noted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Okay. Pursuant to Board Rule 1.06, this meeting is being conducted virtually. Board members may be participating from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public participation as possible, this meeting is being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. We will now move to our items of business. As stated in the public notice, individuals who wish to speak were required to register in advance. I ask those waiting to speak to please remain on the platform until you are called upon. Although we are on a virtual platform, we will still follow Robert's Rules of Order, which dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from board members or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient ways to address them. As always, written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Written comments may be submitted to the board via the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item number 1 is action on resolution 2122R-11 by Director Seamson regarding a comprehensive evaluation of the budget planning process. Director O'Halloran has advised our office that she would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this resolution. The recommendation is that the board adopt resolution 2122R-11 as attached to this item.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Director Seamson, as the sponsor of this item, do you wish to make comments?
Thank you so much, Chair O'Halloran. Yeah, so I just, in my short time on the board here, going through some budget processes in the month of May. This is really an effort to make that that whole process a little more streamlined and a little less bumpy for everybody, and hopefully less stressful by kind of taking a look at best practices that are out there, making sure that there is an opportunity for the board not only to set those parameters that we set, but also put out there our priorities, which tend to come in the form of amendments after we get the budget. I just think it's a good idea to be a little more proactive and have this process just sort of reevaluated. I think that there's always opportunity to improve a process as big as this one. So this is an opportunity to do that. I would like to, before we have any public discussion or members of the board comment, I'd like to see if Mr. Matt Chasen has any thoughts he'd like to share, and of course, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you, Director Simpson. I will ask Office of Accountability and Efficiency if you have any comments to make, and then I can follow up on any comments after that. Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. If it's all right with the chair, I will defer to the administration. They are bringing forward a recommendation. I would like to maybe allow them first crack, and then I'm happy to provide comments after that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chasen. I just want to quickly say that I did ask if I could co-sponsor this along with Director Simpson. I believe that when we get the binder, as I've said in the past, I sometimes feel like I have both too much and not enough data. So any attempts that we can make to demystify that document, make it more accessible to our families and the community, and represent kind of a true up between what we budget and then how it actually gets spent along the way. Any clarity around that would be appreciated. So those are my comments. And next, I will ask administration if you would like to make any comments, please.
Good evening, Chair O'Halloran and members of the board. Keith Fosley, Superintendent of Schools. We're recommending adoption of the resolution that's before you with a minor adjustment to the timeline. We're asking that you consider adopting the resolution with a final evaluation provided to the board no later than December board cycle instead of the November board cycle. This additional time is necessary in order to complete the extensive evaluation and consultation with the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. And at this time, I would like to thank the Office of Accountability and Efficiency in advance for their support, and I would like to also turn it over to Matt Chasen for brief comments. Matt.
Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
Thank you again, Chair O'Halloran, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Yeah, no, we're very enthused by the resolution introduced by Director Simpson. We think this is a great opportunity in consultation with the administration to look at opportunities to improve our budgeting process, especially with the onboarding of new board members recently. I think there have been some things that have been identified that can probably be improved in our process, and we look forward to doing the work with the administration. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
Given that the resolution and its finality will actually impact board policy, we're asking that the Office of Board Governance also be involved in the process.
Director Simpson, do you have any issues adding Office of Board Governance?
I have no objection to that.
All right. Thank you for improving upon the resolution and the recommendations. At this time, do we have any public testimony on this item, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Okay, then I will go to committee members. Does anybody wish to make comments or ask questions? All right, it looks like, oh, I do see Director Carr.
I move for approval.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing that we have a motion on the floor, will the secretary please call the roll?
Madam Chair, just for clarity, and Director Carr, is that approval with the Office of Board Governance being added to the process?
Yes, I apologize. I move for approval. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. On the motion by Director Carr to approve resolution 2122R-11 by Director Simpson, and co-sponsored by Director O'Halloran regarding a comprehensive evaluation of the budget planning process, moving approval of the resolution, adding the Office of Board Governance to the planning process. Director Carr,
Aye.
Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
Aye.
Director Simpson,
Aye.
Director Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item number 2 is a discussion of an action on amendments to the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, Esser 3 proposed budget. The recommendation is that the board determine the action it wishes to take with respect to the proposed Esser 3 budget amendments.
Thank you. Does the administration have anything they wish to present at this time?
Yes, Chair O'Halloran and members of the committee. Before you is an extensive information regarding the Esser 3 allocations. We are prepared to respond to any questions that you may have and provide any additional information regarding budget details and budget amendments. I also want to share with the board, we must budget $3 million for hazard pay for secretaries, and the administration have identified possible budget lines where this could be, where this $3 million could come from. At this time, I would like to ask Martha Kreisman to provide some additional information, and we look forward to engaging in discussion relative to determining the best way to support our students through the Esser 3 funding. Martha.
Good evening, Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreisman, Chief Financial Officer. We are prepared tonight to go through the amendments with you, and we would also, as Dr. Posley mentioned, like to talk about the hazard pay for the secretary, since that is not an Esser 3 at this point.
Thank you, administration. Are you prepared? Yeah, Madam Secretary.
Chair, members of the committee, we have specifically noticed tonight's meeting for the Esser 3 budget and budget amendments. And so to ensure that we are meeting the legal requirement of noticing what the discussion will be about, at this point, I'm trying to figure out where the hazard pay resolution or action fits in this conversation, as it is not a part of the Esser 3. Is that what I just heard?
Madam Secretary, I think you are correct. It's not currently in there. So are we allowed to make amendments from the floor?
Madam Chair and Mr. President, you did ask me this question earlier today, and I did go back and take a look at the resolution that was discussed and passed by the board relative to the amendment process to the superintendent's proposed budget. And that does include the Esser budget. At this point, there would be no opportunity for the public who looked at the resolutions, looked at the amendments, to understand that this would be something that they could call in and speak about, because it was not posted with the other amendments. So in that situation, you would not be giving the public the opportunity to understand everything that would be discussed tonight. Relative to the process itself, under extenuating circumstances, board members could make a budget amendment.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I did see President Peterson's hand raised. Did you have a comment or a question about this particular item?
I also believe the administration has additional information too.
Okay.
President Peterson.
I'll defer first to the administration, then I just want to comment on the process.
Okay, thank you. Administration?
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, Our goal tonight is to address all the amendments that we have, but just with full transparent and disclosure, we wanted to make the board aware of the $3 million that we talked about, and just to share that we have work to make sure that we know where these dollars could come from if asked. So we totally understand and agree that we are here to address the amendments and prepared to do so.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Members of the committee, just for clarity, if I understand the administration correctly, they are not asking the board to take action on that tonight.
Is that correct? Administration, can you comment on that?
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, that is correct. However, we know that in order to get to zero, this is something that we have to address. And I just want to be totally transparent about it.
Okay, thank you so much. And I do see President Peterson's hand raised again. President Peterson, would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
Yes, I would like to make a comment. It seems to me that we can take action, notice it for the special board meeting on October 14th, and we're going to take action on this budget item and on the whole budget. But I do think it's essential that we learn tonight where the cuts are going to be to this budget. Otherwise, we're operating in the blind. And so no action, but I would like to see us learn from the administration where they're planning to cut $3 million. Because if somebody else is also cutting from there, that means we might be wiping out whole budget lines and wouldn't know it unless we are told that tonight.
Thank you. Before we turn it over to committee members for comments or questions or public testimony, administration, can you comment on ideas where you think we would be able to find the $3 million within this document?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. To come up with the $3 million, there are a few places, and one is page 8. There's a line item for student support. It's extra hours for staff, and $1 million could come from that line. $500,000 could come from writing, page 10. There's also for the writing curriculum. There's also funding in Esser 2. $500,000 could come from fiber optics on page 30. And then another $1 million could come from $250,000 from registered nurses on page 19. And listen, hear me out for a minute. And then page 23, specialized services, which was extra funding for positions like psychologists, et cetera. And the reason those were chosen is because at this point in the year, we haven't hired those extra positions and they're going to be difficult to hire. So we think reducing that by those amounts will not affect our ability to go forward. We would still actively try to recruit for those positions.
All right.
We just feel it'd be delayed by that amount.
Okay. Thank you for giving us some background and clarity on where we can potentially find the $3 million as we move forward with both the amendments tonight and then eventually this discussion to culminate at the special board meeting that we will have on the 14th. Does that conclude your presentation, administration?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the board, yes, we are ready to start with amendment number 1.
Thank you so much. I think before we turn to the amendments, Madam Secretary, at this time, can we ask for public testimony, or would you recommend that we do that as amendments come up? I'm not sure if we have detail on specific items that people are asking to testify about.
Madam Chair, we have 2 individuals on the platform registered to speak on I'm sorry, there's one person on the platform registered to speak on this item. And we can go to public testimony if you would like.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Yes, let's take the testimony and then we can follow up with any committee members' questions and then move to amendments.
So noted. Christy Davis Gutierrez is on the platform registered to speak on this item. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Good evening, Chair O'Halloran and members of the committee. I am Christy Gutierrez, spelled Gutierrez, a member of Common Ground and First Unitarian Church.
Thank you.
At the first Esser 3 hearing in June, Common Ground submitted a 4-part proposal based on what we heard in our listening sessions. Common Ground organized 5 listening sessions and engaged over 130 parents, grandparents, teachers, principals, social workers, and community members to get their ideas on how they think this money should be spent. We asked for at least $1 million to expedite the hiring process and boost recruitment, especially for teachers of color. In our listening sessions, we heard about teacher vacancies and about prospective teachers choosing to work for another school district because MPS took so long to complete the hiring process. We heard about how difficult it can be to recruit and retain good teachers and administrators. And we understand that COVID has made recruiting even more challenging and increased vacancies. Tonight, I'm here to express Common Ground support of 5 amendments. We thank Directors Peterson and Gokul Gande for introducing a almost $1.7 million amendment, that's number 6, to add 5 additional positions to the Human Resources Department. The additional staff will increase efficiency and expedite the pre-employment and onboarding process. We also support Director O'Halloran's and Director Garcia's amendments number 7 and 8 to increase funding for MPS University in order to grow our own teachers, especially those of color. Helping paraeducators become licensed teachers is money well spent because they are already invested in Milwaukee Public Schools. However, we prefer that none of these funds are taken from the career and technical budget. And we support Director Carr's and Director O'Halloran's amendments number 10 and 11 for incentives to attract and retain hard-to-fill positions at MPS schools, particularly in the 53206 zip code. We believe these amendments will help fully staff our schools and increase the number of teachers of color. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that was the only speaker that we have on the platform that registered to speak on this item. So the item is back with the committee.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we turn to the amendments, do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Seeing none, we will now consider the amendments that have been proposed by board members. I will ask the secretary to call the first amendment, and then I will ask for a motion. We will then have discussion and action, and then repeat that process for each amendment. Madam Secretary, please call the first amendment.
Madam Chair, the Office of Board Governance has been advised that Director Leonard has withdrawn amendments number 1 and amendment number 5. The first amendment for consideration by the committee tonight would be amendment number 2 by Director Herndon, which is to restore funding for fire alarm replacement in schools for students with hearing loss by decreasing after-school transportation funds.
Thank you. Director Herndon, do you have any comments on your amendment?
Yes, I would just like to say that I felt this was extremely important because we have a school that specialty is for students. It's called the School of Sign Language on the Northwest side. And if any of, I don't know other schools in the district that may have a need, but the recommended policy actually states schools. So if there are other schools that have a reasonable sized population, I certainly hope administration could give us direction as to whether this amount of funding would support the other schools.
Thank you, Director Herndon. Administration, do you have any comments specifically as to does this amount cover this school and multiple schools or just one school? Can you speak to that, please?
I think you can.
Good. Okay.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance. The sites that are being specified primarily, as Director Herndon mentioned, was Milwaukee Sign Language. That was definitely one of the sites. There's 4 other sites that would be taken into consideration as well. It would be King High School, Marshall, the Borough site, Niscara, and Golda Meir. Golda Meir had a fire alarm upgrade, but the message center piece for the hearing impaired could also be an additional piece added to that. The dollar amount that's indicated in there, would have to take a look at it. Originally, it was specified primarily for Milwaukee Sign Language, but we'd be able to look at other opportunities under the capital projects, taking a look and addressing those 4 other sites.
Thank you. Do other board members wish to comment? I see Director Gokul Gandhi's hand. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Sorry, Chair O'Halloran, that was an accident.
Just kidding. What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this amendment? Do I have a motion? I saw Vice Chair Leonard's hand first.
I move to approve.
Okay. And at this point, Madam Secretary, we don't need a second, right? Just one. All right, I have visual confirmation. All right. Given that we have no other comments, will the Secretary?
Madam Chair, you do
yes.
have Director Simpson in the queue.
Oh, okay, Director Simpson.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that the motion that we're passing is to look at all the schools that may need that upgrade. You mentioned 4. So this amendment would include all of those schools. Is that correct?
Administration, can you comment, please?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Simpson, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance Services. Yeah, the intent would be to take a look at that dollar amount and addressing those 5 sites that we just discussed.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? Director Herndon.
Thank you. I understood administration to say that they could take additional funding if needed from one of the other sources. Is that correct?
Administration?
Chair, members of the board, that is absolutely correct. We will look for other funding options to be able to meet that need.
All right. Any other questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
I did see Director Leonard raise his hand and make a motion. Just wanted to give the board a little bit of a heads up for tonight because we have so many action items. If you would like to make a motion rather than raising your hand, if you could just unmute your mic and try to get the attention of the chair by just calling.
I'll try to
Madam.
pay attention too.
Well, a lot of hands were going up at once. So I just want to make sure that the person who wants to make the motion will get an opportunity to. So if you could just unmute your mic and call Madam Chair. I would like to call Madam Chair and let you know that the administration would like to speak.
Yes, I do see administration's hand raised. Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the board, we will be using other capital projects to be able to do this work, looking for dollars in other capital projects. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, so then the transportation spend would be whole. Is that what I'm hearing? That you just found a different source for it? Or is that, I just want to make sure I understand that correctly.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the board, we are saying leave the dollar amount the way it is tonight, and that the additional schools will be added through capital projects. And we'll look for capital projects to be able to do that.
Perfect. Now, do we have any other comments or questions? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Leonard's motion to approve amendment number 2 by Director Herndon to restore funding for fire alarm replacement in schools for students with hearing loss by decreasing after-school transportation funds. On the motion as read into the record. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next item, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 3 by Director Leonard, and that is to allocate $5 to $9 million to, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, $5 to $9 million to Greenfield Bilingual K-8 school to expand the school by 4 classrooms.
Thank you. Director Leonard, do you have any comments on your amendment?
I do, and I'm hopefully I can wade through this correctly. So first of all, as mentioned earlier, I had withdrawn 2 of those amendments, mainly because in discussions with administration, I totally agree with them that we should give every district board member the opportunity to actually prepare their schools and offer their proposals to use facilities, facility funding from the Esser funds to either do modifications or expansions to their buildings. I use Greenfield Bilingual as my example because this school has been slated by the Master Facilities Plan since 2018, but really 2014, they were supposed to be in the bilingual building expansion plan. They are, I believe, 192% over capacity, if I understand those numbers correctly. The Southwest District is 114% over. When you look at their different buildings, they're requiring 4 buildings to be built in the Southwest District alone. I believe Bob Peterson was correct when he said there's no way we're ever going to have that kind of money. But I do believe that we have enough money right now through Esser, through the $68 million, to at least start thinking of modifications and expansions of our buildings. So I brought Greenfield Bilingual up as an example of that. I believe that I should still withdraw this amendment so that we can start moving forward on it. My concern is that, and this is my perception, but I believe that we move way too slow when it comes to facilities plans. I think we have to get rolling on this. If we have any chance of competing with the Crystal Rays and St. Augustine's and other privatized schools out there, we need to start expanding our buildings. So I'm sort of pushing this issue forward. I know that Dr. Posley and I actually spoke on this already, so we're hoping that we can actually get this set up and moving really before the end of the year, to be honest, okay? Anyway, so I will withdraw that motion, this motion also, and I do not know what I have to do with that at this point, Madam Chair.
So noted. We would now move our conversation to the next amendment.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next amendment, please.
Amendment number 4 by Director Carr is to allocate funding to address and reduce concerns of air quality through the purchase and installation of air conditioning in the buildings of schools with an early start calendar.
Thank you. Director Carr, do you have any comments on your amendments?
Yes, thank you. So I had a chance to speak with the administration, and I definitely appreciate the support and the work that was done to determine the total amount that is needed to address the facilities, specifically air quality and infiltration concerns that we saw or heard so much of during this past summer. And so I moved to amend the amount of funding. Initially, I had 48 million but I want to amend the amendment, the budget amendment to reflect the administration's recommendation, which would be a little over $140 million. And Madam Chair, can I get the administration to weigh in on this item?
Yes, I was going to go to administration next. Administration, do you have any comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The amendment would allocate funding from the air quality temperature control modifications on page 25 for, well, now there's not enough money there. It was originally for 18 million to air conditioning in early start schools. The administration's response provides the early start schools and the estimated amount for air conditioning. These estimates are prior to a full assessment, and the total estimate came to 140 million, which is being proposed now. So we would have to find where we would get the additional funding.
Thank you. Director Carr, do you have any recommendations where you would pull the rest of the 140 then within the budget document?
No, I don't. And I apologize. I was actually traveling when the superintendent and the administrative team contacted me. I have not had a chance to look over that. I guess what I would say is I think this should be a priority. When I think about, and I know this doesn't completely answer the question, but when I think about some of the immediate concerns or issues that our schools have, and I think about this short-term funding that's pretty much a once in a lifetime, one and done deal, I think that we have a unique opportunity here to prioritize the needs of our school buildings. I think that is going to be a long-term investment that will be worthwhile. And so I implore the administration and my board colleagues to find out a way to fund this because this is so important. And I just think about the concerns, the articles, out from educators relative to the hot summers and the temperature control or the lack thereof in our buildings. This must be a priority. When we're talking about recruiting and retaining our families, our students, we have to prioritize this specific item because this will create a learning environment that's more conducive to academic success and progress that is needed in this district. So I don't, Madam Secretary, how should I proceed with this?
Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Director Carr, what is the intent? The intent is to move approval of the amendment with an allocation of, and please correct me if I'm wrong, $140 million?
Yes, an increase of 92. I believe that's $92 million.
Okay, and so that's allocated on page 25 of the Esser budget?
Yeah.
Did I hear the administration? Okay. So noted.
Yes, I was just going to go to committee members then. Director Gokul Gandhi, I see your hand.
Yes, Chair O'Halloran. So can someone please clarify what the new amount is and where it's coming from in the Esser budget? I'm not clear on the amount and where it's being pulled from.
Okay, thank you. Director Carr or administration, can you care to comment on the actual amount and the source of that?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the board, The remaining amount will be $122 million, and we do not have a line item of where that's coming from right now.
Okay, thank you. Director Carr, just to clarify, is that your understanding?
Yes, yes. And again, I apologize. I received this information last week and I was out of town. I just returned, so I have not been able to look at it. I haven't. And I'm curious what the difference, if the administration can clarify the difference, because I have from the initial proposed amount of 48 million, I have an additional 92. I believe the superintendent just said 120 million. Can you clarify the difference?
Okay, yes, the amendment that's uploaded says 18 million, not 48 million. So I'm not sure where the difference is between that. I think that's where the discrepancy is coming from. Administration, did you receive a 48 or an 18?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, we were going by the amount of 18 million that's in the table for the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, Director Carr?
Sorry, Madam Chair. The original amendment that I submitted had 48 million. I think if you look at page 25, there was already 30 million allocated, and we were increasing that amount as I see it with the revised amendment. We were increasing that amount by 18 million. So I have 48 total, which was in the initial budget proposal. I apologize. I have that one in front of me, but I'm looking at the one that was revised. But if you look at page 28, or I'm sorry, 25, there was already 30 million allocated to it, and that we're proposing the increase of 18 million, but now we're proposing the increase of 92 million. So I think that's the confusion there. I apologize. This was not the original one that I submitted.
Okay, so tonight before us, we have a motion for 140 million to be put towards air conditioning with no source of where we would pull it from the other lines within the Esser document. So that is what I believe we are considering. Is that correct, Madam Secretary? Regardless if it's adding 92, 122, we're considering at this point 140 with no actual lines specified. Okay, now I'm going to turn to I'm just going to go in order of Director Garcia, Director Peterson, then Director Herndon.
Yes, thank you. I guess my question is in regards to the actual like estimate to have like folks, I know this is like the front end of what we're guessing the cost might be. I don't know if the administration has a little bit more information in terms of, you know, what is the turnaround rate to get an actual more closer cost of what this would be. And then within that cost analysis, do we include what moving forward, what the additional cost would be, you know, an electrical, like all those things that I know this is one-time funding. So just to make sure that we have an understanding as to what the longer term investment will be as we move forward and kind of plan around that.
Thank you, Director Garcia. Administration, can you specify how you arrived at the estimate that's in the table? If you can clarify or further refine those estimates that might possibly come down and what the long-term upkeep might be?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Garcia, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance Services. The numbers that are presented right now are 28 sites out of the remaining early start schools out of the 42, that those are the ones that don't have air conditioning. I shouldn't say they do have at least one room of air conditioning, some have partial, but the figures that were pulled together were to fully provide air conditioning in the early start schools. Those numbers were based upon looking at square footage, and we had probably less than 48 hours to pull these numbers together. So we were taking a look at existing systems and some of the rooms that have been have AC. It depends on the mechanical system at each site. Each one's different. Some are older, some are newer. So that's why some of the numbers kind of fluctuate as you kind of see the numbers that were listed on the amendment as the response. With that being said, what we're looking to do as part of the process, which I've already provided direction to our integrated project delivery contractors, our IPDs, as part of Esser 2, as they're doing air quality assessments with checking the engineering design sheets and also for the testing and balancing. And besides the other assessments they're checking on each site for like exterior classrooms, water bottle stations, carpeting, etc. Part of that assessment, I asked to give a more further defined square foot cost and what the cost would be to provide full air conditioning, not only to the early start schools, but then whatever remaining schools that don't have AC. So we're going to get something a little more definitive, but again, until these consultants and contractors go through our archives, review the design, what the function of all the buildings are, do some assessments, and then at that point, they're able to determine more of a cost. That was, again, part of what we're looking to get some of that information as part, upcoming, that would be part of an air quality report. But this is part of Esser 3, so that was already part of an Esser 2 initiative that we were providing direction to the IPD contractors. So this is a very preliminary number based on square foot costs on the 28 sites that were in question.
All right, and then just one follow-up to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you forgot the one piece that she had asked about, the upkeep, like if there's any increase in electrical or any additional spend that would be looking forward.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Garcia, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director of Facilities and Maintenance. Those costs that we have pulled together, that does include electrical and everything to get a fully operational system for the AC in the building. So that covers all the pieces. And also that would be looking at to provide design and some contingency on those figures. So it's a cost to provide the construction up to getting it full AC in the building for those 28 sites.
Thank you. Director Garcia?
Yes, so just one more follow-up, because I know that you mentioned that there's already some preliminary kind of findings through Esser 2. So would we be correct to assume that there would be some of that 140 million? Is that already something that we can use Esser 2 money on? Or is this something that is just specific from Esser 3?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Garcia, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director of Facilities Maintenance Services. The $140 million, keep in mind, is for air conditioning. It's not really primarily related to air quality. So that's only for 28 sites. If they're going to come back with an assessment of doing all the remainder of the sites, I can guarantee that figure is going to dramatically rise. So again, the $140 million is just for the sites that are in question, the 28 early start schools. But again, we're looking to do is get those assessments done to see what type of neighborhood we're looking at if we wanted to provide AC for other sites. I mean, there's other options that could possibly be pursued that you look at, maybe providing AC for a cafeteria or maybe some assembly spaces or some classrooms that have maybe a specialty program. But again, when you look at costs, providing AC for an entire facility is very costly. But again, that is not addressing the air quality piece that we're trying to achieve primarily with the Esser 2 funds to get that ventilation audit, address deferred maintenance items, and do upgrades as we can.
Thank you. I see Director Peterson, Director Herndon, and then Vice Chair Leonard. Director Peterson, you're
Thank
muted.
you. I have one question and then a comment. And Sean started to describe it, but I know that the amendment as it's currently written takes out the the temperature control and modification work and replaces it with air conditioning. Could you just give us a little more information about what temperature control modifications means short of air conditioning?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Peterson, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance. Temperature controls primarily relates to thermostats and also providing updated server systems where you have old equipment that provides you pneumatic systems. We're trying to upgrade things where they refer to as direct digital control. The nice thing about that, you're able to check to see from an energy level how much energy is being consumed. You're able to remotely check systems off-site. So a lot of those upgrades are related to that, but they do also tie into the air quality piece, that if you wanted to have a damper open for more outside air, it's those type of things where that temperature control piece, that's kind of the definition of what that line item would be.
Thank you. So my comment is that in and of itself is something that we want to do. And I also, two other things, which is this amendment talks about the early start schools. There's a lot of schools actually that have summer school that aren't included in this. And so if we're going to be focused on this question or really push it, we'd have to expand the number of schools, and that would continue to raise the price. And as much as I understand the need for us to deal with hot air and conditions, I'm opposed to passing this amendment because we don't know where $122 million are going to come from. And besides, I think the $18 million it says that is already designated as where it's going to come from is something that's important in and of itself. So I recommend people voting against this amendment.
Thank you. I have Director Herndon, Vice Chair Leonard, and then I'll come back to Director Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some questions related to conversations that I've had with some in administration in the past regarding this issue, and I'd like some answers on them. One being, our buildings are extremely old. So the other thing is that the heating systems are those with forced air versus hot water or cold water, because I know for Golda, we're paying for cooled water to provide the air conditioning that they need in one of the Golda buildings. I would expect, too, that the school buildings are so old in some cases, such as Rufus King, for example. If you go in and start tearing out walls, are you going to put in forced air, or are you going to try to use existing water systems? If you start to tear out walls, is there a possibility you may run into asbestos, which could skyrocket the cost? Those are my questions.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Herndon, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance Services. It's kind of mentioned, like you met Director Herndon, that some of our buildings are old, very aged, for some like King High School, Pulaski. And what you're kind of mentioning as part of the air conditioning system would be introducing chilled water, which you'd have to run the piping throughout the building. And then you'd have to run ductwork in those older buildings, as you do have some forced air. However, you'd have to provide new ductwork. A lot of the ductwork's encased in the old walls. It's not insulated. So a lot of that stuff, hate to say, it's almost reinventing the wheel. So that's why the cost that you kind of see attached to some of those figures that are placed on there, that's why it's very costly. And when you look at the forced air versus chilled water, because again, a lot of the stuff, chilled water is also with cooling towers. And you kind of mentioned with Golda Meir that, yes, we are working through that agreement for the chilled water system to tie into that for the air conditioning piece. But air conditioning, it is not cheap. And that's one of the things that, we're taking a look just from the square foot cost. But yeah, older buildings typically do not lend themselves better for applying AC to retrofit it in a building.
Thank you.
What about excuse me, Madam Chair, what about the possibility of asbestos?
Henry, my apologies for not addressing that, but yes, a lot of times you start opening up walls, and then if you're dealing with insulation, a lot of those times you are encountering asbestos material, which not only adds cost, but it makes it more problematic of trying to do that selective demolition or abatement piece that you have doing at that, especially where you're trying to look out for the safety of the students. It does add some problems to it. But yes, sometimes the older buildings you will have to address and encounter asbestos. Yes.
So the asbestos in itself could add a tremendous amount of cost if that's the correct assumption, in which case we have to take that into account when we're budgeting. And if I'm on the correct path, that would mean a cost such as asbestos, which we don't know, we have no idea what it would be, but that cost could reduce the number of schools. No matter what amount we budgeted, it could reduce the number of schools that could get ultimately the air conditioning. Would that be halfway correct?
Director Herndon, yes, I mean, that would be the case where until you do that full assessment, again, these are just kind of square foot numbers, but once you'd kind of dive into a project, you'd bring a consultant on board. They'd take a look at the existing system. They'd look at our asbestos management plans, take a look what materials that are potentially would be disturbed. And that's the time where you kind of get a sense of where things are moving forward. And then they'd also provide an updated estimate to kind of let you know where your construction's going before you were to get the bids. But yeah, anytime you have to address asbestos, it normally has a hefty price tag to it.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Director Leonard and then Director Carr, and I see Director Gokul Gandhi's hand again.
Oops. Yeah, I think we've discussed this pretty well. I want to move to call the question.
Okay.
Point of privilege.
Second.
Madam Secretary, how should we proceed at this moment?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the question has been called. It is up to the chair whether you'd like to allow for everyone who has not spoken to be able to speak on this item, or move right to calling for the motion.
Since Director Gokul Gandhi's first question was really around clarifying what we were actually discussing, if you have any quick comments or questions, but then I would say we should just move to.
I was going to move to call the question too.
Okay. Perfect. Then we're all on the same page.
We're not all on the same page. Does that mean I can't speak anymore about my budget amendment?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Members of the committee, we do have a motion on the floor, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what the motion is. It's Director Carr's motion to move approval of the amendment, and the cost of the amendment is, if I'm hearing from the administration, is 122 million, not 140 million. Is that correct?
Administration?
Chair Halloran and members of the board, it's 140 million.
Okay.
Okay. Director Carr, and then let's call the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my questions are, one, I heard that, we needed more definitive answers before we make a decision about whether or not to support or even amend the amendments for a reduced amount. I think some of the things that we have to consider is when we're talking about the square footage of many of these buildings, how do we even have that discussion when many of our buildings are not fully utilized? Why are we making these assessments or these estimates based on buildings that are not fully utilized? That's my first question. And then, is there an opportunity to look into partial AC?
Thank you for your comments. At this point, I guess we have a motion. The question has been called. I think we've gone around several times on this. I would just go to call the question at this point.
On Director Carr's motion to allocate funding to address and reduce concerns of air quality through the purchase and installation of air conditioning in the buildings of schools with an early start calendar start date. The amendment is for $140 million. On the motion as read into the record, Director Carr,
Aye.
Director Garcia,
Nay.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Nay.
Director Herndon,
Nay.
Director Leonard,
Nay.
Director Peterson,
Nay.
Director Simpson,
No.
Director Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair O'Halloran.
No.
That's 2 ayes, 7 noes. The motion fails.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 6 by Director Peterson, is to lessen the wait time and other obstacles in processing employment applications by adding 2 talent management specialists and 2 human resource services assistants.
Director Peterson, do you have any comments on your amendment?
Yes, thank you. It's been a longstanding observation by many teachers, principals, and prospective employees that at times our HR department is so overwhelmed, it's not able to move quickly into the process of getting teachers on board. And as a consequence, some teachers leave and go to other districts or get frustrated and decide not to apply at all. And I would say that this is a one step forward into making our HR department more adept and capable of doing what we all know that has to be done, which is to hire quality teachers. And I just want to suggest that it's a one step, but it's an important step. And I want to also mention that Director Gokul Gandhi is a co-sponsor, and if she wishes to speak, I would like you to ask her that, Chair Halloran. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Director Gokul Gandhi, would you like to make any comments?
Ditto to everything President Peterson said.
Perfect. Madam Secretary, did you note that Director Gokul Gandhi is co-sponsoring this?
So noted.
Thank you. Does the administration have any comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The amendment is proposing to add staff to human resources in order to accelerate the employment process. The total amount of almost 1.7 million would reduce the amount set aside for social studies by 400,000, writing by 775,205, and BLMA by 498,036. Reducing these areas will not impact implementation due to funding supporting these areas in Esser 2.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go to board members. I see Director Taylor, then Director Simpson. Director Taylor?
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Just wanted to ask to be a co-sponsor as well. And also being a former employee of the district, I know the wait time that it takes for someone to get in, and hoping this will help move us along as well, keep those educators here or bring new ones that would like to join part of the MPS family.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Can we add Director Taylor as a co-sponsor?
So noted.
All right. Director Simpson and then Director Carr.
Thank you. One of my questions was already answered. I just knew that I had heard that with the secretaries, with the hazard pay, we were using some of the writing curriculum money, and this is also calling for some of the writing curriculum money. So it sounds like that's already covered. So I guess my question has been answered. Is that my understanding?
Administration.
The ESSER 2 funds?
No, that's okay. So can you comment on the writing curriculum spending, please, administration?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer, that is correct. We talked with the head of curriculum instruction to ensure that this wouldn't impact implementation for the writing curriculum.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I'd like to move that we adopt it at some point.
Secretary, we have a motion. Director Carr.
Just for clarity, the 498,000 from BLMA, how will that impact the department? In what ways will that impact BLMA work by removing the $498,000 from that office to put into creating new positions for HR?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. For Esser 3, the BLMA line should have been budgeted for years 2 and 3, since year 1 is in Esser 2. And it was incorrectly budgeted for 1 through 3. So it will not impact the implementation.
Director Carr, do you have follow-up on that?
Yeah, I guess, so I know in the previous, and pardon my lack of understanding with this, I know in the previous, when we did budget amendments in May, and we voted to approve of the 2021-22 budget, I know that there was funding allocated to BLMA. You're suggesting that this will not impact that work that was funded in the first budget cycle?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, that is correct, Director Carr. There is that amount that we're reducing is in Esser 2, and that was for year 1 implementation of the amendment that was provided in May. And we added year 2 and 3 for those same amounts in year 2 and then 3 in Esser 3, but it was incorrectly put in for all 3 years.
Okay. Thank you.
You good, Director Carr? Okay. Director Gopal Gandhi, I see your hand.
I'd like to call the question, Chair O'Halloran.
Well, let's do that. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Simpson's motion to approve amendment number 6 by Director Peterson to add 2 talent management specialists and 2 human resource service assistants to the Department of Human Resources. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 7 by Director O'Halloran, and that is to increase funding to MPSU to respond to ongoing staffing shortages.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice Chair Leonard, please.
So noted.
I don't know if you want to officially call on me.
So, Chair O'Halloran, go ahead and speak to your motion, your amendment.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I thought you'd never ask. So I put forward this amendment because MPSU has been, we've seen such a success with recruitment, especially for educators that, you know, speak Spanish. We've seen the way that we can grow the pipeline for educators of color. And so I wanted to put additional funding to this program so that we can fill some of these vacancies that we've seen. And with that, I guess that concludes my comments. It's pretty straightforward.
Administration, do you have anything to add to that?
Chair O'Halloran, or Chair Leonard, members of the committee, Amendment 7 would increase funding to MPSU by reducing the line for assessment alignment on page 13. The administration recommends that $150,000 of the funds be used to provide additional support for candidates in the MPSU program that are struggling with specific classes. The other $300,000 would be used to incentivize recruitment and retention. And the administration further recommends that reducing page 6, career and tech ed, by $250,000 and assessment alignment by $200,000 because there are other amendments that affect assessment alignment.
Any questions from anyone on the committee? Director Peterson, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to second the importance of what the administration recommends for the use of $150,000. I know for a fact that there are some teachers, say, who are going into early childhood education. They have to pass a math test. They're not really great in math, but they need some assistance to pass it. They probably will never be teaching the level of math that they have to pass, but nonetheless, that kind of tutoring can make the difference between somebody getting a license and going on to being an excellent teacher and somebody giving up in frustration. So I appreciate that part of this proposal as well. Thank you.
Director Halloran, did you want to say something besides that?
Oh, I just wanted to say that that I agree with administration's recommendation on where to pull from, because I had put forward a different funding source, but if administration has an alternate plan, I support that.
Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we
would-
adopt this amendment for
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yeah, that's what I have my hand up for. So whoever you would like to use.
Okay.
Let's go with Director Taylor.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
You're on mute.
I'm on mute.
I did click the button. I don't know. On Director Simpson's motion to approve amendment number 7 by Director O'Halloran to increase funding to MPSU to respond to ongoing staffing shortages with the funding source as recommended by the administration. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 8 by Director Garcia, and that is to increase funding for MPSU to grow and strengthen the teacher certification pipeline.
Director Garcia, do you have any comments on your amendment?
Yes, I mean, I put this forth because I've been getting a lot of feedback from current employees that are undergoing endorsement and certification program through our MPSU, and just making sure that we are building in the adequate support. You know, for so long we talk about, you know, teacher retainment and being able to grow the teacher shortage, or to grow our pipeline in order to meet the teacher shortage that we're seeing, specifically in very specific programs, such as the bilingual education program, such as, you know, special ed. And those were the two that I have been hearing a lot from, just, you know, folks that are enrolled in that program. So this was put forth together to ensure that, you know, we're putting in the adequate staffing. And I don't know how this is impacted with, you know, Director O'Halloran with amendment, where we're already seeing $150 being dedicated to the candidate support, and then $300 to incentivize recruitment. So I don't know if it's possible to, I guess, like amend mine specifically to ensure that, you know, the money that we are putting in goes to, you know, the bilingual certification program. I know that I talked to the administration about this, and they, you know, the response I think is adequate in terms of teacher recruitment and incentivizing talent to come here. But I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of just supporting the folks that are currently already employed by, you know, MPS, and that are really trying to, you know, get their certification, but are maybe struggling with, you know, the programs that they're enrolled in. And I think that, you know, we would really go above and beyond to ensure that we're supporting them. And you know, it's more of a, in good faith that, you know, we're behind that career move and that we're here to support. And, you know, that's really where this amendment is stemming from.
Thank you, Director Garcia. Administration, do you have any comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, the administration, the amendment would reduce remodeling and additions by $200,000 to provide that amount to MPSU. And the administration was recommending that the funds be used to cover the cost when an employee breaks their contract with another district to come work for MPS. This would make us more competitive to hire qualified educators.
Okay. Do committee members have questions or want to make comments? Anybody want to make a motion? I see Director Taylor had her hand up.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Director Carr, did you want to make a motion or did you want to make a comment or ask? Okay.
Either or, okay.
So we have a motion on the floor. Going once, going twice. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Just for clarity, Director Taylor, is that motion to approve the amendment with the funding sources recommended by the administration?
Madam Secretary, I would like to say yes, because that's the agreement I took from Director Garcia. Yeah.
Right. I think we're all on the same page. Director Garcia?
Yeah, so just to kind of just re-emphasize, because I know that if as written, then we would be moving to do the $200,000 to be invested in the liquidated damages for folks to break their contracts with other districts. Is that how this amendment stands right now?
Madam Secretary, is that correct?
Madam Chair, that would be a clarifying question for the administration.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, the amendment is for the money to go to MPSU. It was just the administration's recommendation to use it for the liquidated damages. So then I would probably put it back on the motion maker to see the intention.
Okay, Director Garcia, well, no, actually the motion maker was Director Taylor.
But I am going to refer to Director Garcia since she is the author of this amendment.
All right, we're ping-ponging. Director Garcia.
Here we go. Let's play. I would like to, because I do think it's important as we're looking at these more like longer term strategies on, you know, how do we attract talent? So I do think that it's important to have some pot of money that allows us to have that, I guess, incentive for folks to come to our district. So what would I have to do and then to say that with the recommendation that 100,000 of that goes to the cover expenses of liquidating damages, and then 100,000 be added to specifically for bilingual candidates, bilingual certification candidates. Because Madam Secretary, I don't know if you can help me with this.
Madam Secretary, can we bring some clarity to this amendment, please?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Director Garcia, that that is very clear. If I'm understanding your motion correctly, what you're looking to do is to reduce remodeling additions and allocate 100,000 in funding to the Milwaukee Public Schools University and 100,000 in funding to support bilingual education, bilingual educators.
Okay, and Director Taylor, you had made the motion, so are you on board then?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
approve this motion.
Perfect. And I see Director Peterson's hand is raised. Director Peterson?
Just to reconfirm, $100,000 focused on the bilingual and $100,000 to deal with people who will get penalized if they're transferring from a district to our district. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Yes, Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, Director Garcia, is it $100,000 to support bilingual educators in MPSU, and then $100,000 to for the contract management for transfers into the district?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion as read into the record by Director Taylor, in support of amendment number 8 by Director Garcia to an increased funding for MPSU to grow and strengthen the teacher certification pipeline with $100,000 to be allocated to support the bilingual educators in the MPSU and $100,000 to be allocated for contract management for transfers into the district. On the motion as read into the record. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 9 by Director Taylor, which is to provide fresh fruit and vegetable options every day as an additional meal option in every K-8 and middle school.
Thank you. Director Taylor, do you have any comments or to make on your amendment?
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. We have heard throughout the years and continue this year with news articles, social media, hearing for our youth people in reference to the nutritional and the meals that are served. There was a budget amendment for high school students to receive services as this, but we had nothing that spoke out to K-8 schools, only in certain schools. So I feel like we should have the option to address this issue with nutrition and give all of our students the chance and opportunity to have a nutritious meal with extra fruits and vegetables during mealtime, so that they have a healthier option to have, but also we understand what nutrition does for the mind, body, and spirit in a learning environment as well as outside.
Thank you, Director Taylor. Administration, do you have any comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The amendment would provide $3 million for more fresh fruits and vegetables in K-8 schools. The amendment suggested to take that funding from the Nutrition Center on page 21. The administration proposes to take the funding from the LGBTQIA+ on page 22 for $440,340, which is 1 year of funding. It is already budgeted in Esser 2, so will not impact the implementation. Then the rest, which is $2,559,660, would come from instructional subscriptions on page 32. We will support any extra need for online subscriptions through other funding sources such as Title I or Title IV. The Nutrition Center will provide a place for professional development for food service staff, food tasting and recipe development, and also provide a place for central nutrition staff, thereby opening up more space for physical distancing for them and other staff at central services.
Thank you. Before I go to committee members, I just want to make sure, is the proposed funding source okay with you, Director Taylor? Are you okay with that?
Yes, Chair O'Halloran.
Okay, thank you. So we're all on the same page from the start on what we are considering. I do see Director Peterson's hand raised. Director Peterson? And you are on mute.
Yep. Okay. I noticed that one of the comments from the administration is refrigeration and storage capacity will prevent us from providing enough, even more fresh fruits and vegetables. And as I've toured schools, I've noticed a vast difference in terms of refrigeration in some schools versus the other. So just a question, if you could have the administration answer, how will we deal with the refrigeration and storage issues?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Umar Abdullah, Director of School Nutrition Services. We do have every year in our budget funds to replace equipment and update equipment and stuff like that. So we will go through that process and ensure that we have necessary refrigeration and space available for this.
Director Peterson, do you have any follow-up? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other comments, questions, or potential motions before us? I see Director Carr.
I move approval of this amendment with the recommendations of the administration.
All right. Do we have any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to approve amendment number 9 by Director Taylor to provide fresh fruit and vegetable options every day as an additional meal option in every K-8 and middle school with the funding sources as recommended by the administration. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next item, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 10 by Director Carr to provide annual incentives for educators in District 4 who commit to serving an additional 3 years in the same school with both new and current educators.
I am on mute. Sorry about that. Director Carr, would you like to make comments about your amendment?
So the purpose of this amendment is to really speak to or to respond to the concerns of school leaders that are leading schools in the 53206 zip code. There has been many challenges with filling critical positions that are needed, positions that align with core subject areas. And so the purpose for this is to recruit and provide an incentive for individuals who are willing to commit to 3 years of teaching in those schools. The other part of this, other part of the concerns that have been brought to my attention, which I'm very much so aware of, is the conditions of the neighborhoods, and that being one of the reasons why some of these positions within the schools are hard to fill. And so again, this is to really incentivize and encourage quality educators to fulfill those positions and to stay in those schools, just providing a little additional support. I'm open for any questions, concerns.
Thank you. Administration, do you have any comments?
Yes, Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. Amendment 10 provides funding to incentivize educators that commit to 3 years in the same school in 53206 zip code. While the amendment specifies $1,500 per year, the administration would like to develop a plan to incentivize recruitment and retention for staff serving an additional 3 years. The funding would come from page 8, student support, which is additional hours for staff.
All right, thank you for that response, Director Carr. I'm just going to go back and check in with you after administration's response before we go to committee members. Do you have any comments about that, or we're all on the same page? Okay, I see a verbal or a nonverbal shaking of the head, so we're good. Okay, so I see Director Taylor and then Director Peterson and then Director Simpson.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. I just have a clarifying question. I know when it first reads, it said 53206, and then it specifically goes to District 4 educators. So I guess I wanted to know, is it just the District 4 schools, or is it 53206? Because I know that encompassed a couple other boards, schools in that district as well, too.
Okay, thank you. Director Carr, as the maker of the amendment, can you clarify the intent, please?
It's for the 53206 schools.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any follow-up, Director Taylor?
No, just to say thank you to the maker of the motion, because I have a couple schools in that district too, and some of them are sometimes harder to fill positions. So.
Okay, thank you. And then I have Director Peterson and then Director Simpson.
Thank you. I just had a question about how we will determine who gets the $1,500 a year for 3 years. That's up to, that'd be $4,500. And if you take the total amount that you've allocated and divide it by 450,000, it's 50 teachers. So it would be, as on this the second page of the amendment, it says K-12, art, physical education, world language, STEM, engineering. So it's not for classroom teachers at those schools. It's for those special teachers. Well, obviously, English as a second language is they're classroom teachers, but not all classroom teachers. And in the high school, it's for specifically math and science teachers. Am I reading that correctly?
Director Carr, is Director Peterson understanding the amendment correctly?
I would actually defer to the administration to answer that, because that is a part of their recommendations.
Okay, administration?
O'Halloran, members of the board, Michael Harris, Senior Director of Talent Management. Yes, so we know that in the 53206, due to enrollment size, we want to make sure that those students in that school district, in that zip code, have the same opportunities as those in other zip codes. And so we know that if we can incentivize to recruit and attract first and recruit those folks to come into our schools, we will be able to provide our students exactly what they deserve and need. And so we are focusing on math and science for the middle and high school, because we do understand that that is the gatekeeper for a lot of our kids with being successful as they move on to high school. And so we also want to make sure in the elementary levels that they are provided the same opportunities as all other students in the district.
Director Peterson, does that clarify your question?
It's clarified, and I support the amendment. Thank you.
Perfect. Director Simpson?
My question was answered. Thank you.
All right. So, seeing as, I see Director Taylor's hand.
I make a motion for approval of the amendment with the administration's recommendation.
I'm muted. Do we have any other questions or comments? All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Taylor's motion to approve amendment number 10 by Director Carr to provide annual incentives for educators in the 53206 zip code who commit to serving an additional 3 years in the same school, both new and current educators. Motion by Director Taylor. Director Carr.
You're muted.
Aye.
Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
Aye.
Director Simpson,
Aye.
Director Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 11 by Director O'Halloran, and that is to implement the recommendations from the Hard to Fill Schools Task Force report, which was presented to the board on March 25th of 2021 to prioritize the comprehensive support and improvement schools.
I will pass the gavel at this time to Vice Chair Leonard, please.
So noted.
Chair O'Halloran, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, I would. So as noted in the intent, we had a task force that was convened. And I feel like a lot of this is kind of redundant for the conversation that we just had with the amendment. And so I just wanted to put some weight behind the recommendations that came forward from that task force. The recommendations included, just to go back, I apologize, I just pulled it up. The recommendations were to develop and implement a district-wide school-based onboarding protocol, develop an equitable professional learning plan with supports, develop competitive compensation, benefits, and incentives to improve recruitment and retention efforts in hard-to-fill assignments. And yes, so those were the three main recommendations that came out of that task force that came forward earlier this year. And so that was the intent. And that concludes my comments.
Administration, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes, Vice Chair Leonard, members of the committee, Michael Harris, Senior Director of Talent Management. Yes, the recommendations came from the Hard to Fill 53206 Task Force. The members of the committee felt that the schools in that specific zip code needed some support regarding how we bring on talent into the district, but then when we hand them off to each of our schools, and how do we support them from the time that they apply for a position in the district till their 100th day in their position. The goal is to make sure that they have all the tools and supports that they need. And so we feel confident that by developing a tool and working alongside the staff and the school leaders, we can improve those retention efforts.
Thank you. Is there any committee members that would like to ask questions? I don't see. Oh, Director Simpson.
I would just move that we adopt the amendment with administration's response.
Okay. Secretary, do you want to call the roll? Oops.
On Director Simpson's motion to approve amendment number 11 by Director O'Halloran to implement the recommendations from the Hard to Fill Schools Task Force report, which was presented to the board on March 25th of 2021 to prioritize the comprehensive support and improvement sites with funding sources as recommended by the administration. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 12 by Director Leonard, which is to increase capacity for more parental involvement programs.
Thank you. Director Leonard, do you have any comments about your amendment?
Not really too much. I looked at administration's recommendations. Actually, they did a better job than I did. I like it very much. Looks like we could actually control some of the costs that I put in there. I just want to make sure that we have enough financial backing so that we can move our parent empowerment ideas forward.
Thank you, Director Leonard. Administration, do you have any comments?
Yes, Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The amendment requests funding for family engagement of $5 million to support parents as tutors, ESL and bilingual classes, and supporting the community school concept by increasing relationships with families. The administration agrees with the premise of the amendment and proposed funding for professional development for parent coordinators and resources for programming to better engage families. Also, an additional family and community engagement associate to help be a liaison between schools, family, and the district. In addition, funding to promote participation at school and district family engagement events. This came to a request of $2 million rather than $5 million. We propose the funding would need to come from athletic facility upgrades due to the other amendments impacting assessment alignment.
All right, thank you. And I believe, Vice Chair Leonard, you said that you appreciate and accept administration's responses. Okay, so that is where we're starting from. I see Director Peterson's hand, and then Director Carr.
Thank you. I understand part of it is to promote attendance, participation at school and district family engagement events by offering incentives, et cetera. Could administration review what money is already in the budget for schools to increase their parent participation? I just wonder if there's any duplicity.
Administration, care to comment about any potential duplication of budget?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. Most of the funding for parent engagement, I would ask Christy to talk about, but I also want to mention that there is money for parent coordinators at all the schools, and then funding at the school level for parent engagement resources or supplies. It's minimal. It's about $1,000 per school.
Chair O'Halloran and members of the committee, just to kind of piggyback on what Martha said, there is funding for, I believe each school is allocated $1,000 to support programming for things like Title I. They also have additional funds for, I believe, up to $6,000 for additional family engagement opportunities at school. So things like their open houses and other events such as that. So this would greatly increase their capacity to be able to provide quality programs, engage our families, get them out, get them interactive, and help them support the needs of our students and our schools.
Thank you. Director Peterson, do you have follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, I agree with all that has been said, and I'm generally supportive of this, but on page 15 of under accelerated learning, there's $15 million allocated for parental involvement, and so the 500,000 of that is for the parent institutes, Milwaukee Parent Institutes, and then the rest are funds for schools. And are we saying that $14 million is equivalent to only $1,000 a year for each of the schools? Is that where that money's coming from?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. I'm sorry, I was talking about other budgets that we have for family engagement. Getting back to Esser 3, you are correct. There is 2 different lines for family engagement already in Esser 3. And as you said, one's for 500,000, one's for almost 10.4 million. The 10.4 million is to provide like a menu of activities and materials for family engagement for each of the schools. And the 500,000 is for a parent institute in the fall and the spring.
Okay. Are you clear now, Director Peterson?
I am clear. I will let others talk. I do have a question of where the money's coming from, but go to other people, please.
Okay, I have Director Carr, then Director Herndon.
I apologize. Hand raised.
Okay. Hand withdrawn. All right, Director Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a couple questions with this. For one, the amendment states that it would be a decision between the parent coordinator and the administrator. And I wonder how much autonomy would the parent coordinator have in determining how these expenditures would be spent in any given school? I know that over the years we've talked about the responsibilities and to a degree the autonomy that a parent coordinator would or should have in operating their plans for parent engagement. So I would question that. And then in terms of everything else, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Would administration or the maker of the amendments be able to speak to the autonomy with which the people would be able to spend the money?
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, one of the things, all of any monies that come into a school, the principal or the school leader is responsible for adhering to guidelines around those dollars. However, that those dollars are earmarked for parent coordinators to work with the school community and parents to decide what they want to do around that. So that is kind of the way we have it set, that the money will be, the principal is responsible for those dollars entering and the upkeep of those dollars, the fiscal agent of those dollars. However, for planning purposes, that's the parent coordinator and the parents that's going to center around that.
Okay.
Director Herndon, is that clear? Do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, so Director Carr, I see your hand up now again. So do you have a question or comment?
I wanted to ask Director Leonard if I can co-sponsor. I support this. I absolutely love the concept. Thank you.
I see Director Leonard nodding his head, and he said yes. So, Madam Secretary, please make a note of that. And then I see Director Peterson's hand again. Director Peterson.
So noted.
You are on mute.
Excuse me. I'm concerned about where the money is coming from, and I'd like any feedback from either the maker of the motion or the administration. I mean, what it says is, just for the listening audience, Bradley Tech synthetic turf was installed 2010 and is well beyond its expectancy, resulting in the need for a complete overhaul. And then also reduction to the proposed upgrades to the district tennis courts from 5 million to 2 million would reduce the number of courts that could be upgraded from 46 to 23, thereby resulting in student athletes continuing to play at subpar facilities. All the identified sites need this funding to serve our students in its full capacity. And I know that a lot of students are motivated by sports. Tennis is becoming even more popular amongst some of our students. And I just wonder if there's a way to somehow find money for these important upgrades.
Administration, can you clarify this, your comments, or make any suggestions where we could find an alternate source for this funding?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, the administration was going with the amendment as it was proposed, except for the assessment alignment, because that funding has already been spoken for. There's probably 800,000 left on that line. But there are further amendments coming that talk to assessment alignment, so that what was left in the amendment was the athletic facilities. If this is reduced to 2 million, then the reduction to the athletic facilities would be less.
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, there we can also take a look at other lines at where this could come from, and now's a golden opportunity if anyone see one to point it out.
For the invitation to collaborate on this source. Vice Chair Leonard, do you have any comments about this funding source?
I have looked at a few other lines. I don't have that in front of me, but I did see, I did think about the amounts, thinking that if need be, we could take some from the facilities of the 68 million. I don't know how much that would be entirely, because when I read that last section, I'm not sure how much money we're really losing on those ball fields and tennis courts. I want to guess around 2 million to 3 million, but.
Thank you. Director Peterson, do you have any other questions, comments at this time?
I'll just say that I think we should pass the resolution and the amendment. If we're down to 2 million, that means that at least the athletic field at Bradley Tech could be restored. And then maybe we can get the Milwaukee Foundation to do a tennis campaign, get a famous tennis person coming into Milwaukee or something and raise some money. I can think of a few. So I'm fine. I just wanted to let people know, that we are every one of these decisions has a consequence. Thank you.
And yes, thank you, Director Peterson. I will just make a comment that when we were presented this initial fund, so many people were like, yay, we can do everything. And as you can tell, we're coming down to where do we pull 250,000 from? Where do we pull? Because there are so many worthy things coming through these Esser funds. So thank you for that comment. Do we actually have a motion on the floor at this time, Madam Secretary?
There is no motion on this amendment.
See Director Taylor.
That was for something else. I'm sorry, Chair O'Halloran.
We're getting a little slap happy here. Does anyone care to make a motion on this item or have any more questions or comments? Director Peterson.
I move that we adopt this amendment with the administration's modifications.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Peterson's motion to approve amendment number 12 by Director Leonard to increase capacity for more parental involvement programs with the funding source as recommended by the administration. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 13 by Director O'Halloran and Taylor, and that is to provide a transportation stipend to families in order to offset transportation challenges for return to school.
At this time, I'll just ask Director Taylor if you would like to make any comments, and then I can fill in after.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. We know we have been dealing with transportation issues with the amount of our students who are not able to be bused, regardless of what's going on. Maybe it's due to the lack of bus drivers, but that it is creating a very I want to use the correct term. It is creating a very challenging for our families, with some of them also threatening to go other places if we don't get it together. And so just having something to let our parents know that we absolutely hear you and our families. We want you to stay within MPS. And if this is a token to say, if some parents can get their children to school, to give them some type of stipend, just as a way of saying thank you and thank you for wavering through with us as we try to get this bus situation underhand. And I know that was my reason, and I'm thinking Director O'Halloran's, to ensure that something was being done with the lack of transportation options that we have at this point.
Thank you. Vice Chair Leonard, can I just pass the gavel real quick? Okay. Yes, I had proposed this amendment because we had heard, as Director Taylor said, from so many families. And when I say stipend, whether that it was just trying to find alternatives to make it easier to reduce the barriers to parents getting their kids to school. And so that maybe that's if they can drive. There was one parent who wrote to us saying that they can take the county transit, like they're flexible, but they don't have actual like the bus pass themselves. So I proposed this pot of money as a stipend with the intention that it would be flexible to find solutions for our families. And, it did come out at the last meeting that we had explored the possibility of entering into contracts. So perhaps this is a redundant amendment and we already have plans, but I put forward the amendment. We created the amendment before the full board meeting last week. So, that concludes my comments. Vice Chair Leonard, are you giving me the?
I'm sorry, I'm giving you the gavel back while I'm fumbling for my mute.
Oh, noted.
Thank you. Okay, administration, do you have any comments?
Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. This amendment would provide transportation stipends to families, and the funding would come from assessment alignment. We did have enough left to do this in assessment alignment, and while we do have plans for transportation, we can use the money for this.
Hit the wrong one. Thank you, administration. Do any board members wish to make comments, ask questions? We are losing steam. Director Peterson. You're on mute, sir.
I'm sorry, I move the approval of the amendment. Apologies.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Peterson's motion to approve amendment number 13 by Director O'Halloran and Taylor to provide a transportation stipend to families in order to offset transportation challenges for return to school. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul-Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 14 by Director Carr, and that is to allocate Esser 3 accelerated learning tutoring funds to provide paid opportunities for students with strong academic standing and with an interest in education to earn a stipend and receive service hour credits for graduation requirement.
Thank you. Director Carr, do you have any comments on your amendment?
Yes. So when I spoke with the administration on Friday, they informed me, which makes sense. You can't compensate students and provide service hours. Duh. I actually think, I'd like to hear from everyone else, but after reviewing this, I'm starting to think that maybe this is an opportunity for a proposal. And not necessarily a budget amendment, because we do have a line item in accelerated learning, specifically speaking to tutoring. And so I just think this could be an opportunity for a proposal, but I'm eager to hear from everyone else.
Thank you, Director Carr. Administration, do you have any comments before I turn it over to board questions, comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, I agree with Director Carr's statement about we cannot pay students and also let them receive community service hours, and that there is funding under accelerating learning for tutoring, and that could be multiple different types of programs, the money that's already set aside.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Just for clarity, if Director Carr is saying this could be a proposal, are you withdrawing this amendment?
Director Carr?
No, I want to hear from everyone else before I make a decision.
So noted.
All right. I do see Director Herndon's hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that I supported this wholeheartedly, but at the same time, I see the discussion is kind of going where I was expecting it to, which was that we had additional funding as well already earmarked for tutoring, which I think is going to be extremely important moving forward. So that's the reason why I support this should she choose to do so. But I also have a question in that one of our community organizations did put forth what I thought was an excellent idea in terms of supporting our students in the area of tutoring, because I think that our children are in desperate need of that. And they also do need some of the services from adults as well. So maybe as we work this out, we can do a blended type of service over tutoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Herndon. I do see Director Carr's hand raised.
Yes, no, I definitely agree with Director Herndon. I think this honestly can go either or. If it's going to remain a budget amendment, I will have to amend it to revise it and remove the language of the community service hours. And so, yeah, I'm okay with either. I know that there's a lot of funding specifically allocated to tutoring. And I know that there's opportunities again for proposals. So I don't know if it makes sense. I will follow the lead of my colleagues if that's acceptable, because Robert's rule is so confusing and I don't know what to do.
Director Carr. So, Madam Secretary, at this time, if I'm understanding Director Carr correctly, we are going to amend the amendment and remove the service hours component, but leave the rest of it intact for consideration by the rest of the board members. Okay. And I see Director Carr nodding her head, so I think we're all on the same page right now. I do see Director Peterson's hand raised, and then I still see, nope, Director Herndon's is gone. Okay, Director Peterson.
Yes, I appreciate the fact that the amendment is modified. I still don't think we should pass it. I think there is adequate funding for tutoring, and in terms of a proposal, I assume we're going to put out an RFP for some of that tutoring, and so people who are in the community who have specific ideas can put forth their proposal, and we can consider it.
Thank you, Director Peterson. Director Taylor?
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. I just need clarity on exactly what we will be voting on. With the two things being like we can't pay them and do the credit. So are we going with the amended version or just exactly what?
Thank you. Director Carr, can you clarify your intent at this point?
Yes, so we would amend it to remove the language of the community service hours. I'll say part of my motivation, much of my motivation is really looking at some of the best practices utilized throughout other districts to really elevate the profession of teaching and create a more, I guess, uplifting picture of the teaching profession. But I also know that in other districts, they are creating a student to teacher pipeline that's providing hands-on skill development while also allowing for them to work with their peers to create a mentoring pipeline. And so I think, one, we are amending to remove the language of community service hours. And I think the proposal should stand as is. So I will proceed with next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Carr. Director Taylor, does that clarify your question?
Yes, that we are basically voting on the money part for the students and taking out the community service credit.
Yes. Do you have any other comments or questions? See none. Oh, wait, administration.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, John Hill, Director of College Career Readiness. Basically, when we look at this, we would be moving $1 million from tutoring to tutoring. So essentially, it's a mute move. We can set up, when we put out requests for proposals, we can request proposals around engaging students in a peer-to-peer tutoring type model that could provide stipends or pay. That could be one of the requests for proposals. We initially talked about 3 types of tutoring models. We talked about before, after, and Saturday, which would be staff, typically. We talked about tutoring for reading or literacy in the primary grades, which could be paid or volunteered. And then we talked about paid tutoring for math in the high school grades based on the Apollo 20 program in Houston Independent School District. We could put out a RFP around a peer tutoring type model, which included stipends as well. In terms of an education pipeline, I would remind members of the committee that we do have our MQ College Connections program, which we have introduced an education pathway, which part of that pathway does include internships at summer school. And then we do have a couple of high schools that are building education pathways as we speak. Reagan has begun with a class this year, and those students are going to be doing field work at an elementary school. So I just wanted to kind of clarify what's in place.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I do see Director Carr's hand.
No, and I just wanted to say too, I do know that when we discussed, when I had the meeting with administration on Friday, we discussed removing that language and the administration being in support of this. The other methods of my madness, I should say, or motivation behind this is to really alleviate the stress and pressure of some of our educators. We have amazingly talented students, and we need to leverage those skills and abilities. And again, it only makes sense to do so in this way. And even thinking about like innovation in education, I think this is our opportunity to really be kind of socially innovative. And so I appreciate the support from the administration with the removal of that language.
So noted. I'm just going to make one comment, so I'm not going to bother passing the gavel. Just wanted to say that I worked a lot of jobs when I was a young kid, and you know, within the school district, selling milk, teaching gymnastics, and these are the sort of things that providing opportunities for our students seems like a win-win. So I am in support of this. And with that being said, do we actually have a motion before us?
Madam Chair, we do not have a motion.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion or make any more comments or ask questions? Okay, I see Director Simpson doing one of these.
Sure, I would move that we approve this amendment with the modified language.
Thank you, Director Simpson. Any other comments, questions? All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Simpson's motion to approve amendment number 14 with the modified language, which reads, this amendment is by Director Carr to allocate Esser 3 accelerated learning tutoring funds to provide paid opportunities for students with strong academic standing and with an interest in education to earn a stipend for tutoring. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
No.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 no. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 15 by Director Carr, which is to allocate funding to both Washington High School and North Division High School to establish an education commission to support the development of the school and the community relationships, assisting with the development of strategic education plans to implement school improvement plans, and assist with recruitment and retention and legacy.
Thank you, Director Carr. Do you have any comments on your amendment?
So this is a loaded one. So I will say after having numerous meetings and attending some alumni meetings for both schools, and then doing a thorough evaluation or analysis of the data, specifically Washington High School and North Division, they're in need of, for the lack of better words, significant support. I know that North Division is one of the community schools. This is not to create any conflict with that. It's to literally build on that and to really engage the alumni of both schools in a way that we have not seen before. Part of the motivation behind this amendment really came from a model implemented at Bradley Tech with the principal being also, I guess, assigned a commissioner role to fulfill the duties and responsibilities as it pertains to the community engagement aspect of school progress, advancement, development, however we like to frame it. And so that's some of the reason behind the motivation. But I really want to be intentional about really supporting these schools. North Division is the feeder high school in the 53206 initiative. And investments have been made in the past, but I think if I'm being honest, those investments have not been as successful or effective because of the lack of community engagement in that specific neighborhood. And so, of course, I'm open to any questions, concerns, but I think this is a step in the right direction. I think it's a unique funding opportunity to put some support behind community engagement in a way that we have not seen before.
Okay, thank you. Does administration have any comment before I go to the board?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. With Amendment 15, The administration wants to point out that these are community schools and they have a community school coordinator that is already paid at the schools. The job description is similar to the commission development specialists that's being proposed. And if this would move forward, we would want the 100,000 to come from a different line than the administrative on page 40, which is Recreation Project Coordinator, LTE, to support the overall Esser program under extracurricular engagement.
And Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, just want to be clear that the administration does not support this item.
Thank you, administration. I saw Director Gokul Gandhi's hand first, and then Director Carr, then Director Peterson.
Thanks, Chair O'Halloran. So as a former community school coordinator who managed a commission, I could say that this is the role of the community school coordinator. And when you look at what the sole responsibilities of that person in the building is one is to kind of help develop create power in the building amongst all of the people who are in that building, but then also bring in the community to ensure that they're represented on that community schools leadership team and community schools council. And so, we have those partnerships that are supporting these community schools. And frankly speaking, sometimes adding another commission does nothing but detract from the purpose of what is supposed to go on a school. And now you're just managing external people. So I think that we have the infrastructure in these buildings that is intended to operate as this amendment has put forth.
Thank you, Director Gokul Gandhi. I'm going to go to Director Carr next. Peterson, Simpson, Herndon.
Thank you. What I will say is the commission development, I think it was commission development specialist or support, whatever the reference position that the administration reference is not what I'm trying to do here. I am very much so aware of the community school model and the community school coordinator. This is an opportunity again to engage the community that has not been engaged before. And that's evident even in the survey data that was collected during this Esser 3 funding cycle. Whatever and all the efforts that are being made and the initiatives that have been developed in the past, it's not working. And it's not to say that it can't work. It's simply to say that we're either going to have to put more into these specific schools or approach the inequities from a different angle. So this is not in conflict of, or not to conflict with, again, the community school coordinator. If anything, this is to work with them and help them develop and engage those communities like no other. And I don't want to solely focus on North Division. Washington High School is another. Like I said, I listened and I attended meetings with the Alumni Association, and they are very much so disappointed in the direction and the progress that the schools have made over time, despite the initiatives and investments that have been put in. And so this is going to give them an opportunity over the next 3 years to work in collaboration with the school leaders, the students, the faculty, staff, the community school coordinator, to really design a model that will work and that will lead us or produce the results that are needed in order to create for North Division a quality feeder school, and for high school, for Washington High School to really retain or sustain and support the legacies that have already been established. And so again, this is not any role that will conflict with the community school with anything relative to the community school. If anything, it's to help support those initiatives, because as we've seen, and one of the things we can't deny is that specifically those communities are not being engaged like other communities, and that is problematic. And I implore my colleagues to really approach this with some intentionality and urgency. We have a lot of investments that are going into the K-8 schools in the 5326 initiative and throughout other schools in District 4. But sometimes we fail to neglect or we neglect to invest in those high schools. And Washington North Division has all the potential as a Rufus King, a Reagan, and all the others, but it's going to need additional support because the needs of those communities are not the same as the needs of those that are enrolled in and active at the other high performance schools. And so again, and I reiterate, this is not to conflict with the community school model, it's to do something a little different.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Director Peterson?
I support the administration's proposal, which is to not support this amendment. You know, I've had a lot of experience with community schools. It's an evidence-based reform that is successful, can be successful. It's making progress at JMAC, at Bradley Tech, and I believe at North and Washington it will as well. I would be interested to know examples of places where there are community schools and with as much support that they get. Here in Milwaukee, we have an incredible community school operation. Recently received a $5 million grant award from the Department of Education. And I think this is, I would like to know the evidence where this kind of additional support for a community school has proven itself. I think what we're doing with the community schools in these two schools is great, and we should continue to support those efforts. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Peterson. Director Carr, do you have anything to respond to that question?
Yeah, I also want to again reiterate that Bradley Tech is a community school with the commissioner. And commissioner developed to, or a commissioner position, or additional support, I should say, to develop out that community engagement piece. I also want to stress the fact that the other communities where community schools models are being implemented does not reflect the needs of those specifically in 53206. I can understand the argument for Washington High School, but not North Division. This school is in need of dire need of additional support. And again, if you just assess the data over the last 10 years, things have not progressed at a rate that we need them to, again, to provide quality feeder high school for the 53206 initiative and for the families in that specific zip code. And so the demographics, the needs of those communities are different. And again, this is a position that will assist and support community schools and build on that to engage the other parts of the community that we fail, we meaning many models, many initiatives, many leaders fail to engage.
Okay, thank you. Then I have Director Simpson and Director Herndon, and then Director Garcia.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Yeah, I just wanted to support sort of the administration's stance on this. I feel like our community schools are an investment that we're making, and sometimes adding layers onto programs can create, it can sometimes lead to some ineffectiveness happening. And I feel like I'd rather see, funds, money, time, energy invested into a program that we as a board, as a district have said we want to set as a priority, which is the community schools model. So I would be behind the administration's position on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Herndon, comments, question?
Thank you. Number one, I would like administration to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that Bradley Tech has a slightly different model than what's used for the other community schools with some kind of board or commission or something like that. I don't know exactly. But beyond that, I've been around and worked at North Division for a number of years before I ever got on the board. And I'm not an alumni, but I was very involved with what was going on there at all times, and developed very close relationships with the staff as well as the students. But I think that you can get too many cooks in the kitchen. I also have one charter school in my district, which is JMAC, and I work very closely with them. And there is a lot of community engagement going on. So I don't see the necessity to put two people in the school. First of all, perhaps screwing up our relationship, because our community schools also depend on our community partners as well. And JMAC has a strong partner relationship. And I think making the wrong move without research and conferring with all the stakeholders involved would be a problem. I think it would be a problem all the way around. Now, maybe something can be worked out, but I think that careful is the way to go here. Thank you.
You, Director Herndon. Administration, can you comment on if our understanding of the model at Bradley Tech differs slightly than the community schools model that is implemented in others, perhaps? Is that where the confusion comes in?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Herndon, Eric Radomski, Manager of Career and Technical Education. So the only difference I'm aware of, I think the community schools operates the same way. The commission was created many, many years ago through a special agreement that many different members signed. And so it was UW-Milwaukee, Milwaukee Area Technical College, the City of Milwaukee, the Mayor's Office, the Labor Council, the Building Trades Council, and others to come together to have some sort of an oversight of the school's educational plan, and also raise a small amount of money for in a foundation, the Bradley Tech Foundation, to use for some things that maybe the board budget couldn't fund. But that's the only difference that I'm aware of, and I think that's the strength of that commission, is that original agreement that got that commitment from those groups.
Thank you for that clarification. Does that respond to your question, Director Herndon? Okay, thank you. Then we're going to go to Director Garcia, and then I see Directors Peterson and Gokul Gandhi's hands up again. And then I think we need to call a question.
Yes, I'll make it brief. So I have a question, Director Carr. When you approach the administration at these schools, what was their, I guess, like, what did they add to the conversation in terms of wanting and supporting a commission position?
Thank you, Director Garcia. Director Carr, can you speak to any discussions that may have already taken place with administrations in these buildings? You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, so I have had an opportunity to meet with school leaders, the teachers, parents, and the alumni. I've had several meetings, and there has been a call for authentic community engagement. And that's not, again, to say or challenge the work, the great work that has been done by the community schools. It's just to merely say it's not enough. I am definitely supported in this. If I'm speaking openly with full transparency, the purpose too is to get more funding around the urgent needs of these schools, because many leaders in the community and I've heard and had conversations with individuals in the school feels as though these schools are among the lowest priority schools in the district to receive funding. And so again, this is to intentionally engage with funders, engage with the immediate residents of the community. And in order to do that, we just came up with the idea of creating this commission. I also want to say too that Pulaski is another school that has this model. And as we see at Bradley Tech, or as it's been seen, and I'm certain others can confirm this, there is no conflict with this. And I don't want to get lost in the narrative of creating a commission to challenge or I guess refute or do what community schools has failed to do. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we need additional support to engage communities, to bring in resources and supports to help build these schools and preserve the legacies. And this is really just an answer to those that I have spoke with, met with in the community, in the schools. But I have full support.
Thank you, Director Garcia. Do you have any other questions, comments?
Well, my only comment is that, if there's already support from administration and, we're hearing that there's with the community schools model that we've been working with and growing within our district, maybe this is an opportunity for us to approach the community schools in terms of a different type of model that can be explored, especially, using that funding source. I guess my only trepidation around this, it's not necessarily the competition, but just making sure that, we are respecting kind of the community component of who we brought in to help us build this out. It's clear through, the conversations you've had that this needs to be strengthened. But maybe it's, we try to explore that route because, we talk a lot about what happened at Tech, but, that commission dated the community schools model. And I think there's some strength in the fact that, as the community model came in, that was kind of left intact and are, trying to embed that in there. So I just wanted to, put that forth, as a possibility.
Thank you, Director Garcia. I did see Director Peterson's and then Gokul Gandhi's, and then I'll ask if we have a motion, because I don't think we have a motion at this time. Director Peterson?
Director Gokul Gandhi was ahead of me.
Okay, Director Gokul Gandhi.
I'd like to call the question.
Do we have a motion, Madam Secretary?
We do not have a motion.
Okay. I would like to move to vote on this amendment.
Madam Chair, we would need a motion.
Okay. Would anyone like to move approval of this amendment?
I move approval of the amendment. Sure.
Okay. There we go. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion to approve amendment number 15 by Director Carr to allocate funds to both Washington High School and North Division High School to establish an education commission to support the development of the school, community relations, assisting with the development of the strategic education plans, to implement school improvement plans, and assist with recruitment and retention strategy. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia. Director Garcia, you're
muted.
Sorry, nay.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Nay.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, given that there was a motion to vote for the amendment with Robert's rules, you cannot vote against your own motion.
Madam Secretary, do you have recommendations on how we can back ourselves out of this situation?
At this point, before the vote is completed, Director Carr, would you like to go a different direction with your intent? Or Director Gokul Gandhi would need to withdraw her motion if she...
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
So noted.
So can I move to adopt with recommendations from administration?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, that the administration only has a recommendation relative to funding. The amendment that is before you is what is printed.
Okay, I see Director Carr's hand raised.
So I don't want us to get caught up in this commission. Would it make more sense to rephrase it, to change the title? I mean, I don't understand the pushback. I think I will say this: when you look at the data, and you do a side-by-side comparison of North Division and Washington High School in comparison to the other reference schools, there are some clear, evident disparities and inequities that needs to be addressed. I don't think anyone on this platform can say that in this current time, we would feel comfortable with putting our children, our students into those schools. There are children, our children in those schools who are not receiving the resources, the supports that are needed in order to help them thrive. I think what we're getting
Point of order, Chair Halloran.
Point of privilege.
Sorry, Director Peterson.
Yes, I believe the question was called. I believe that Director Gokul withdrew her motion. If there's no motion on the floor, then we shouldn't discuss it. If some person wishes to make a motion and vote for it, then that should happen. Otherwise, I think this dies for lack of a motion. We should go to the next amendment.
So we're just cutting people off and being very disrespectful publicly.
Director Carr, would you like to make a motion to approve your amendment?
I'd like to finish my statements. Is that okay?
If you can wrap it up in a minute, great, because I think that we've covered this subject with sufficient discussion at this point. If you would like to either amend your amendment or move approval of your amendment, and just provide any clarifying remarks. Otherwise, I think we have to move on.
Yeah, no, I can make it very short. I will say that I think voting against this is really sending a loud and clear message to those who wanted this to happen. So I don't think I can make a motion to approve or move my own thing. I think, yeah, am I?
Yes. Madam Secretary, am I misunderstanding?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, yes. Director Carr, you can make a motion to approve your amendment.
There you go.
Let's move. I move approval of the amendment.
Okay.
So noted.
Yeah.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to move approval of amendment number 15 to allocate funding to both Washington High School and North Division High School to establish an education commission to support the development of the school, the community relationships, and assist with the development of strategic education plans to implement school improvement plans and assist with recruitment and retention and legacy. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Nay.
Director Gokul.
Nay.
Director Herndon.
Nay.
Director Leonard.
Nay.
Director Peterson.
Nay.
Director Simpson.
No.
Director Taylor.
No.
Chair O'Halloran.
No.
That's 1 aye, 8 noes. The motion fails.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 16 by Director O'Halloran and Garcia. And that is to increase capacity in the MPS Foundation for resource development opportunities to be allocated over 3 years.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice Chair Leonard.
So noted.
Thank you.
Chair O'Halloran, please speak
Thank
to
you.
your amendment.
And so it is my understanding from administration that perhaps this is not an allowable expense under Esser. So I did not get the opportunity to discuss with Director Garcia her feelings on this, but I would be, I just want to make a comment and then withdraw it if pending approval from Director Garcia. I think the previous discussion, though, points to we need to do a better job of fundraising, whether it's through our foundation or otherwise, in order to support some of these extras for our students. It's my understanding that Madison Foundation has 6 employees and we're supported with 2. I think, you know, with my background in resource development, the number one reason people don't donate is because they're not asked. And with 2 people, you know, attempting to ask all of Milwaukee to invest in our students, they're probably stretched pretty thin. And so I recognize that this is perhaps not an allowable expense under Esser, but I would just ask that we consider in the future if there are ways in which we can provide support to the foundation's work in any way in order to support the needs of students and especially the schools that are experiencing the most difficulties.
Administration?
Vice Chair Leonard, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. As was stated, fundraising or resource development is not allowed for funding out of a federal grant expense.
Any committee members want to speak to this at all? Yeah.
You have Director Gokul Gandhi. Oh, shoot. Here we go.
Okay, and I don't see what you see. So Director Gokul Gandhi?
Thank you, Vice Chair Leonard. I understand that this might not be an allowable expense, but I do want to support Chair O'Halloran and Director Garcia in making a point that this is important. And, you know, we do have a lot of needs in this district, and this is a great way to get our community to support our students and have an infrastructure for equitably distributing funding for projects within the district. And so just at some point, we should definitely discuss expanding the foundation, because I think that's a worthwhile cause for all of our students. So thank you for putting this forward.
And Madam Secretary, if we can't really vote on this, what's the next move?
Mr. Chair, you do have Director Peterson.
I'm sorry, Director, and I see Director Garcia also, right?
Yes.
So Director Garcia, please.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, you know, just echo what has been said. Just really looking at how we can invest in, you know, an arm that would help us, you know, fundraise and just do more of that resource, I guess, like gathering and distribution, as we're looking at what that equitable distribution of resources can be for our district. So if we need to withdraw, Chair O'Halloran, I'm okay with that.
And then Director Peterson.
No comment. Sounds like they're withdrawing the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Director O'Halloran, are you withdrawing the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
So noted.
All right.
You get that gavel back.
I'm taking the gavel back. Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 17 by Director Taylor to increase access to mental health services in MPS by creating a check-in service for students needing mental health services and a resource guide to increase awareness of MPS support services and programs.
Director Taylor, do you have any comments on your amendment?
Sure. Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Just given, even before COVID, we know mental health and trauma is something that our babies deal with on an everyday basis, even if it's not inside the school building. The things that happen in the community affects how they learn and behave within the school building. I also see the notes from the administration, and I am okay with some of the changes, because it is stated that we do have services in place. I just think the lack of parents or community members as well as our students and our educators don't know where to look. I was an educator for over a decade, and some of the services we offer, I had no idea we offered. So working within the administration just to make sure that we get the word out and that there is a way and opportunities for those individuals to seek out assistance and know where to go to actually get it within the district.
Thank you. Administration, do you have any comments?
O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The amendment would increase mental health services by decreasing social emotional learning programming. While mental health services are important, the administration believes that enough funding has been set aside to support the students who have tier 2 or 3 needs for mental health support. The social emotional learning plan will help all students at the universal or tier 1 level. The administration recommends only reducing the social emotional learning by $30,000 so that administration can promote and increase awareness about the mental health services that are available.
Thank you, administration. And so just to double check, Director Taylor, you're okay with administration's response and recommendation. Okay. So noted. Committee members, questions, comments, potential motions? Director Carr.
I move approval of this amendment with the administration's recommendations.
All right. Do we have any? Oh, I see Director Garcia's hand. Just kidding. I mean, it was there, I swear. So seeing no comments, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to approve amendment number 17 by Director Taylor to increase access to mental health services in MPS by creating a check-in service for students needing mental health services and a resource guide to increase awareness of MPS support services and programs with the funding as recommended by the administration. Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Taylor?
Aye.
Chair O'Halloran?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 18 by Director Carr to allocate funding to cover remedial course expenses for MPS graduates for MPS students in pursuit of post-secondary education at MATC and UWM.
Okay, Director Carr, do you have comments on your amendment?
Yes, I do. I actually moved to amend the language in there that, let me pull it up, shows or says that it's for graduates. Instead, it will be for current students. And when I spoke with the administration on Friday, you were in support of it if I agreed to revise that language. So I thank you for the support. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Administration, do you have any comments?
Okay. Good. Martha.
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The amendment as it is written, we cannot use the Esser funding to support MPS graduates. If it is revised, it's we would need more understanding for remedial coursework at MATC or UWM.
Good. John.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Carr, members of the committee, John Hill, Director of College Career Readiness. I just want to add that we, with our dual enrollment programming, we do not do remedial coursework. In fact, MATC and UWM are working to eliminate remedial courses, and they're replacing them with what's called co-requisite courses. So our students typically will take a co-requisite course, which simply means they're getting additional instructional time and support for their courses. So we already do have funding in Esser 3 for our dual enrollment programs, as well as we do cover our Start College Now and early college credit programs through board funds.
Thank you, administration. So just so I'm clear, does that make sense to you, Director Carr? Are we all on the same page?
Yeah, and thank you for that. I know that it's in writing in the recommendation. I know when we spoke on Friday, none of that was mentioned. I know the administration had concerns about the language that specify who qualified for it. And so if these systems are in place and are already supporting, and also if they're removing remedial courses, I don't see a point for moving forward with this. One of the things I will also say too is that it's to address motivation behind their budget amendment was to address learning loss, and the program he's talking about I don't know enough about. So if this is going to ultimately achieve what I intend to achieve with this amendment, I have no problem. I have no problem with withdrawing. And I just want confirmation from the administration that one, the remedial courses are being removed, and two, the other services as aligned in the administration response are available to all students, all current students, and is in place to address the learning loss. Can the administration confirm that?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Carr, members of the committee, John Hill, Director of College Career Readiness. Yes, I can confirm that both UWM and MATC are working to remove remedial courses. And we do not put our students in remedial college courses. They are credit-bearing courses. So I can confirm both of those things.
Thank you. Director Carr, I see you unmuted. Do you have a question, comment?
And also that this is an opportunity for all students and not just a limited amount of students who are in need and qualified. This is open for all current students, correct?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Carr, members of the committee, John Hill, Director of College Career Readiness. Dual enrollment, depending on the pathway, they have to be accepted by the college. Now, typically, MATC has a different set of requirements than does UWM, or let's say an MSOE or an Alverno. Through the MQ program, which we reported on in September, we did share that we have had students who've had GPAs, unfortunately, at a 1.3 to a 4 point. So we do look to try to get as many kids this opportunity. We never want to put a student in a position where we're setting them up for failure. So we are very thorough in how we select students. So we will look, at their overall, their last year, their last semester, their grades in that particular subject area. We will do whatever we can to get them into the program without jeopardizing their ability to graduate on time, because that is our number one mission.
Does that conclude your remarks, administration? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. Director Carr, is that good now?
Yeah, it didn't answer my question. what I'll do is proceed with the amendment and move to approve of the amendment with the revision or the removal of the language that it's for current students. I'm sorry, removal of the language suggesting it's for graduates and instead changing that to current students.
Okay, Madam Secretary, did you get that?
So noted.
And I do see Director Taylor's hand.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. And I have a couple questions, but one was going to be for Director Carr, but she already said she's going to continue and move approval. As I read the administration's recommendation, and just to make sure that I'm clear, there was already a grant that was set in place for students who were seniors. Is this what this money would apply to, and that they already have received enough credits to graduate? And so for them to be enrolled in the UWM and MATC program, that will be extra or allotted credits if they wanted to pursue higher education, but that can still be dual enrolled because they're at that pathway to being done with MPS, but they're not graduating because it's not the end of the school year. I think my daughter is in something similar, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right.
All right, thank you, and congratulations to your daughter. Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Taylor, members of the committee, John Hill, Director of College Career Readiness. So the previous answers were based on the question about how we do dual enrollment in general. So yes, we do have a grant that we were awarded for students who have already graduated. It was kind of an emergency COVID pandemic type grant. So we're serving the classes of 2020 and 2021.
Right.
And that grant will go through the end of this calendar year. And in that grant, we are doing, FAFSA completion, summer transition. We work to decrease barriers for enrollment at MATC and UWM. We offer technology support. We re-engaged the class of 2020. So there were a number of activities for that grant for students who have graduated. In terms of students who have not graduated, yes, we will have a variety of dual enrollment opportunities for them this spring and beyond.
Director Taylor?
Really quick follow-up, and thank you for that. I think I get it. And I think it probably would have been much clearer if it would have been like, yes, there is monies already available, that it doesn't even look like we're using the Esser fund, but that there's a grant that allocates what Director Carr wanted to do. So I'm thinking that's where we at now. Like we already have money to do exactly what this was asking to do. Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Thank you, administration.
Okay. I do see Director Peterson's hand.
Yeah, since we have money to already do what's proposed, I would encourage people to vote against the motion, especially given the fact that the $80,000 would come from page 6 extended learning, which is summer, Saturday, and winter academies for students. And that's already been cut in half from 7 million to 3.5 million. And so I would encourage us to not cut any more from that area.
Okay, thank you, Director Peterson. And I see Director Carr's hand.
Yeah, so for clarification, the grant that MPS received was for students who had already graduated. Is that correct? That's my first question.
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Carr, members of the committee, John Hill, yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Director Carr?
Yes, so I think my second question, how many students benefited from that grant?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Carr, members of the committee, I do not have that exact figure off the top of my head. I know we have paid out over $7,000 for emergency aid to students attending a variety of schools from UWM to Tougaloo.
Okay, Director Carr?
No, I just, I want to say that the purpose of this is to really address the concerns of, one, the learning loss that was experienced during the pandemic, and just to be real and honest about the fact that we are not completely adequately preparing students for collegiate level mathematics and science. And so this isn't really a discussion for or a discussion about this dual languages or dual enrollment, courses, but rather mitigating the learning loss over this time. So I move approval of the amendment with the amended language or the revised language to support MPS current students and not MPS graduates.
Okay, so we are back to a motion. And then did I see, administration, were you unmuted? Did you have a comment? Okay, I'm hearing things. Director Gokul Gandhi, did you have your hand raised momentarily?
I just have to call the question.
Oh, okay. Director Taylor was so patiently waiting, so I did want to give you one last chance.
Just so that I'm clear, that these money are allocated towards helping those students get more educational assistance that they needed. This wasn't aimed at any dual or the seniors or anything like that, because as I read the bottom, that's what the amendment seemed to be. I just needed to be clear on what I'll be voting on.
Okay, so Director Carr is nodding her head.
Yes, there is no, in my intent, there is no specified language to speak to dual enrollment or anything like that. It is literally to address the learning loss, over a year of learning loss, and to support the current MPS students who are pursuing higher education at the two or one of the two higher education institutions. Or not institutions.
Okay. All right, so are we all clear? We have a motion before us. The question has been called. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to approve amendment number 18 with the intent to support current MPS students to allocate funding to cover remedial course expenses for MPS students in pursuit of post-secondary education at MATC and UWM. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Nay.
Director Herndon.
Uh-oh, you're muted.
Abstain.
Director Leonard.
Abstain.
Director Peterson.
Nay.
Director Simpson.
No.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Chair O'Halloran.
No.
That's 1, 2, 3 ayes, 2 abstentions, and 4 noes. The motion fails.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 19 by Director Garcia to provide each school with $100,000 to invest in school-specific priorities, whereby each school will choose from a menu of approved activities. Director Carr has indicated that she would like to co-sponsor this amendment.
Great, thank you. Director Garcia, first, can we confirm you're okay with the co-sponsor?
Absolutely.
All right, can we move to any comments that you would like to make on your amendment?
I mean, I think this amendment is just very clear from the listening sessions and just our ability to really bring in be responsive to the unique needs of each school, so that each school can really dictate as to what they feel are priorities that they might want to address, and it might look different at every school. And I think I'm excited to see how each school wishes to use some of this money to invest in, the buckets that we have already identified. And, I did want to also give the opportunity to the administration to develop what that pre-approved menu of options could be. So, within the big priorities, just what that would be for schools to be able to support, the various needs that look different in every building.
All right. Thank you for those comments. Director Carr, would you like to make any additional comments on the amendment?
No, I'm in full support. And I'd like to thank Director Garcia for taking the lead on this. I think it's an amazing idea and it's about time. So thank you. And thank you for allowing me to co-sponsor.
All right. Thank you. Administration, do you have any comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. Amendment 19 would provide each school with $100,000 to invest in school-specific priorities that they choose from a menu of approved activities. The request is for $15.9 million. However, out of the traditional schools, we would only need $13.6 million to support the 136 traditional and instrumentality charter schools. The administration already planned almost $38 million of school community choice activities programs that are listed in the administrative response. Some of the categories offered in this amendment to reduce are not possible, such as the $900,000 from student services, page 6, as this is for the online school that MPS is offering, and micro-credentials for almost $2.3 million, which is already reduced to zero by the administration when balancing the budget. However, that $2.3 million is what is saved by serving the 136 schools rather than 159, so that becomes a non-existing point. If the amendment is approved, the administration recommends taking the additional funding needed instead of from student services, page 6, $855,500 from the mini grants that are listed.
Thank you for those remarks. I just want to double check with Director Garcia and Director Carr that you are understanding and approve of these recommendations and responses from administration. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Okay. Director Carr?
Understood.
I support what she support.
Okay, sounds good. Do any board members wish to make comments, ask questions, make a motion? I do see Office of Accountability and Efficiency has jumped on. Before we move to OAE, let's go to Director Carr because she's got her hand raised. Oh.
I was just gonna make a motion, but I see OAE.
Well, before we go to OAE, would you like to make a motion to approve the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the amendment with the administration's recommendations.
Awesome. All right. Office of Accountability and Efficiency, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Matt Chason, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. The proposal talks about schools having to submit for their grants. I wanted to make sure specifically I understood what the hurdle was. I think we have some schools that are more proficient in grant writing, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't introduce a hurdle that was too high for schools to get access to these funds.
That is an excellent point. Administration, would you be able to respond to that, perhaps?
I can take a step. Good. Chair O'Halloran, Mr. Chason, members of the committee, the mini grants typically, when the district offers mini grants, it's a simple type form that we ask schools to complete with their ideas, and we ask for specific information, time frame, cost, idea. It's a pretty basic process. It's not in the sense of grant writing as we think of with external grants.
Thank you. Office of Accountability and Efficiency, does that sufficiently respond to your question? All right. I see a nodding head. And then I see Directors Peterson and then Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple questions. I see one of the cuts we're making is for $300,000 professional development for paras. And I'm just wondering what impact that will have on paras, because I know that's a huge issue, them not getting adequate professional development. That's one question. The other is I just confused. The administration has already in its in the budget 37, correct me if I'm wrong, 37,769,200 for people to choose, for schools to ask for money for specific projects. What we're suggesting is that each school have 100,000, which is a total of 13 million. And so the difference between the 37 million and 13 million, where does that extra money fall? Is it going to be additional funds for people to apply, for schools to apply? So those are my two questions. The first paras and secondly, the money.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to start with Director Garcia. I think, did you select the lines that from which to pull for this? And maybe that could clarify the intent. You're on mute.
All right, can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I went through the line item and I was very intentional of looking at, budget lines that were covering K through 12th grade. That way we weren't hitting or taking away from specifically high schools or early education. In regards to the line item for para development, I think that's one of the items. I'm trying to find it on here, but I'm not able to look for it and identify it, but I feel that it was just shaving off of an amount that was pretty heavily funded for that. I don't know what the implications of that would be. Maybe the administration can shine a little bit of light around that. But, to the second point of that, that would mean that, the $13 million would be in addition to the $37,000 that the administration is offering in mini grants. The way that this is proposed is not necessarily a mini grant function. It's just $100,000 that will be allocated to schools, meaning that there's no, asking of the money. It's just about the reporting mechanism, which is why, we have the pre-approved vendors of what that money can be spent on. And a big reason why, a conversation that I had with administration about this was if you look at most of the mini grants that were provided really do revolve around, expansion of after-school activities, art, life skills, traditional after-school programming. And I did not want to take away from that, because I think that holistically those are important elements for us to really look at what schools are able to, play with as far as money goes.
Thank you for that clarification. Administration, do you have any comments about either the $300,000 for the paras professional development, or how this differs from the overall 37, which I now understand is in addition to?
Okay, Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. The professional development for the paras, there is a line on page 11, I believe it is. 13, sorry, the hard copy, page 13. And it's $1,382,400. So this would bring that down to $1,082,400. And as far as this being in addition to what we proposed with the about 38 million it's taking away from some of the menus of options or those mini grants. So it wouldn't be in addition to. It's reducing some of the places that we did have for menus of options for the schools, but that can still be wrapped in underneath this 100,000 for each school. So it doesn't mean that they're totally going away. We can just make it part of one of the options that they'd have.
All right. Thank you for administration. Director Peterson, does that clarify?
Yeah, I'll ask one more question.
Sure.
Will any school be allowed to hire extra staff with the $100,000?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. We would need to clarify still and make plans what this menu of approved activities are. At this point, I wouldn't suggest adding staff at the schools, but we would have to come back with what that menu is. By giving each school $100,000 to choose from a menu, what it would do is give them more latitude that, oh, we need more mental health support and less, and I'm just picking on this one, it doesn't mean anything, but maybe less family engagement because we're doing great in that area. And so we could put more of the funding toward that, whereas otherwise they might be within a set category that we had already planned in the Esser 3.
Okay, thank you. Director Simpson and then Director Garcia.
Thank you. I just wanted to double check on the funding for classroom furniture. Were there any other reductions in that area? Only because, like, as a classroom teacher, I had a bookshelf that was held together with a ruler wedged in and some duct tape. So I just want to make sure we're not draining that account too much. I wasn't sure if there were other reductions already made for classroom furniture.
Administration, can you comment on that, please?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. Right now, classroom furniture has $10 million set aside, and I just want to check one more place to make sure nothing's been reduced from there.
And while administration is checking, Director Simpson, did you have any other comments or was it just around furniture?
It was just around furniture, but I mean, this all speaks very much to the inequities of our funding system statewide for education, that it's so very challenging. As you said, Director O'Halloran, it sounds like so much money, but it really, we've been behind for so long, there's so much that is in great need. So just wanted to check on the furniture.
Here, here. Administration, were you able to find if there are any other lines for this then for furniture?
Yes, Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. This would be the only place reducing that $10 million, and it would be reduced to $7,250,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I had previously seen Director Garcia's hand up, but I don't. Oh, she is unmuted. Director Garcia?
No, just wanted to call to question.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have a motion? Or we do? Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a motion from Director Carr.
All right. Please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to move approval of the amendment with the funding source as recommended by the administration. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, the next amendment, please.
The next amendment is amendment number 20 by Director Carr to allocate funding to support the development of school safety staff to train and implement the growth and expansion of restorative practices.
Thank you. Director Carr, do you have any comments on your amendment?
Yeah, so I know that I pulled funding from the budget, page number 3, to I'm sorry, to support, to continue to support the restorative practices initiative, but to kind of shift the focus and develop or create development opportunities for school safety to be amongst the leaders of restorative practices in our schools. And so it wasn't a decrease per se. It was more so just shifting the language or the focus of that specific line item, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Director Carr. I think it makes sense to me. Administration, do you have any comments?
Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, Martha Kreitzman, Chief Financial Officer. Amendment 20 restructures the restorative practices planned in Esser 3 to fall within school safety. This line item in Esser 3 is a continuation of Esser 2 and provides 5 restorative practices coaches to help accelerate the district-wide implementation. Esser 2 provides year 1, and Esser 3 provides year 2 and 3. These restorative practices coaches would ensure that all safety are provided professional development to implement restorative practices in their work.
Okay, thank you. Director Carr, so does that make sense to you then? Are we all in agreement on administration's response?
It makes sense. When I met with, or when I spoke with the superintendent and administration on Friday, they were supposed to get back with me or to me with regards to the response from the head of safety to determine if this was, or if there would be buy-in from the safety department. And so I did not receive any response. I'm curious to know what the response was, if any, from the leaders of the safety department to determine if they think this is feasible and an idea or a step in the right direction to further develop our safety.
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, one of the things that we, is my understanding that we were going to check with the Division of Safety to find out, was this something that they wanted to move forward? And we did talk to Division of School Safety, Mr. Negron, who's here tonight as well, and kind of talk through this particular piece. And at this particular time, it is, although it's an excellent idea, but he does not feel that he has the capacity to be able to do that right now because we are constantly recruiting safeties and trying to make sure that we have a force to move forward on a daily basis. And right now, Mr. Negron is very shorthanded and is not able to make that happen. However, we have shared in the item that, with these 5 positions, they can most definitely work with the Division of Safety and to support the Division of Safety as we get through this.
Thank you, administration. Okay, Director Carr, and then I'm going to go to Director Peterson.
Thank you. So the purpose for doing this was because, and for those of you that have been in schools, you know that the first line of defense or the first individuals or professionals to respond to any conflicts in the building and outside of the building are school safety. When I think about development and leveraging the talent that we have within the district, it only makes sense to have school safety operate as leaders of the restorative practices. They are the closest to the conflict, to the problems, again, that occur within our schools and outside. They know about things that occur before it even, or issues that exist before it even manifests to something more. I think when I think about hiring 5 additional external individuals at a time when we're already struggling to fill the positions that we already have, I think there's opportunities again to continue to develop and provide additional opportunities for our school safety. And so that was my thoughts around this. Again, leveraging the individuals, the skills, the talent that we have in the building, and further developing them to become restorative leaders in addition to the roles that they already have. I didn't see any points at this time in hiring 5 additional full-time employees when we have the talent, the expertise, and the individuals who will operate within these capacities. The other thing is, this was an idea that was brought to me by school safety. And so this is in support of their ideas that were presented to me.
Thank you for that clarification. Director Peterson?
I am strongly opposed to this amendment, and I want to clarify. It's not a question of hiring 5 more. We have the 5 that are being paid the first year through Esser 2 fund. What this will do is, after 1 year, they will be let go because there's not money to continue in years 2 and 3 for them to continue. And that would be extremely harmful for our program. We need actually more restorative practice coaches, not fewer. And as much as I believe that safeties are important, I believe that the best way for us to get restorative practices integrated thoroughly into our schools is to do it school by school, not to do all the safeties and then think that the safeties are going to lead all the teachers in the school, all the other staff in the school to do it. I think doing training around restorative practices requires people who have quite a bit of experience in restorative practices. And I also believe, just my experience teaching and watching our schools over the last 30 years, is those schools which come together around certain curricular commitments, in this case, restorative practices, are much more likely to succeed in developing an entire school culture than if we try to get a couple people from each school, in this case, safeties, to become proficient in restorative practices. I'm not convinced that's going to spread throughout the school. So I'm very concerned if this proposal was taking money from some other place, it would be completely different. What it's doing is it's taking money from the core of our restorative practice program in this district.
Okay, thank you. Director Carr and then Director Gokul Gandhi.
Just so I'm clear, and this is a question for the administration, I was informed that those positions were not filled. I was informed by the administration as well as some of the leaders of the work. And so can the administration provide clarity to confirm or deny whether or not those positions are completely staffed, completely filled?
Administration, have we been able to fill those positions yet?
Director, Chair O'Halloran, and members of the board, we have budgeted for these positions in the budget, and we are in the process of filling each one of them. Some have already been completely filled, and some is in the process doing the interview process.
Okay, thank you. Director Carr?
How many of the 5 positions are still vacant?
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, we are in the process of filling all 5 of those positions.
One more, and then I'm going to go to Director Gokul Gandhi.
When were these positions filled? Because as of Friday, per my understanding, there were 2 of 5 when we met.
Administration.
O'Halloran and members of the board, we have right now 7 positions that are filled, and we have 5 positions that's in process.
Thank you.
Did you in that position as of yet, but in process of making it happen.
Okay. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Thank you, Chair Halloran. Yeah, I just want to harken back to when our lit leaders testified that this is also not the route that they had wanted to go, right? They were big proponents and advocates of making sure that we had fully funded restorative justice leaders within school buildings, setting environments that create teach the teacher effect within a building, right? And so I just wanted to bring that up, that when we've received testimony from lit, it's been to support the development of in-school restorative justice practice leaders. So, and also in the conversations that we've had with the person who runs this program.
Thank you. Director Herndon?
Yes, that's my sentiment exactly, is the fact that we've been requested by so many arms of the community and the student bodies for more restorative justice practices that I'm concerned when we're removing such a chunk of funding from that very thing.
Thank you, Director Herndon. I do see your hand, Director Carr.
Yes, so this is to train and create restorative coaches with the school safety staff that we already have present. It's not shifting or taking away from that. I'm not sure that I'm understanding everything completely, but I do want to make it clear that I'm not trying to take away. I'm literally trying to, in a sense, kind of create dual roles for those 5 individuals who will operate in those capacities, because and just thinking with my being reflective, my teacher hat, they have the relationships already. They know the ins and outs of our buildings. And again, they are the closest to the problems in addition to those who are involved. And so it's not to take away from restorative coaches and ultimately take away from the restorative practices initiative, but it's to leverage again the skills and the talents within our schools. And I've heard the students, organizers, and the community loud and clear. It's an opportunity to leverage the skills, the talent that we already have, and develop restorative coaches within that population of MPS staff.
Thank you, Director Carr. Comments, questions? Do we have a motion?
We do not have a motion on this amendment.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Director Carr?
I move approval of the amendment.
Thank you, Director Carr. Do we have any other comments, questions? All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to approve amendment number 20, Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Nay.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Nay.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Nay.
Director Peterson.
Nay.
Director Simpson.
No.
Director Taylor.
No.
Chair O'Halloran.
No.
That's 2 ayes, 7 noes. The motion fails.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last amendment on tonight's agenda.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary, for your expert guidance through this process. And I just want to close this out with a note that this was a very long meeting, and I want to thank everybody who stuck it out to the end. I want to thank administration, and I just hope that everybody is really uplifted, because this is an exciting opportunity to invest in our schools in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. So we may be tired right now, but you know, our hearts should be uplifted. So there being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.